Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. How you doing today? I'm your host, Nathan Balmer Brown, and with me is two of my amazing contributors, Immaculate View and Moen. How are you doing today, Immaculate?
Doing wonderful. We finally got a little bit of smoke coming up. We've got a lot going on today with all the reports. Could be
Right.
any day now, so we're going to have ourselves a good time tonight.
Excellent, excellent. And then the deep thinking out of his cave, Moen is here today. How are we doing today, Moen? No realignment without Notre Dame.
If I was doing any better, I'd have to be twins to handle it, Nate. Uh,
Okay.
hashtag bend the knee.
Oh, wow. Okay. I appreciate that very much. I want to appreciate everybody today. And actually, I want to say just take an extra second here to thank all the followers and the joiners and the subscribers. Today, I passed a couple of big milestones, and I wanted to share them with everybody. We went over 4,000 followers on Twitter, which blows my kids away. And then even bigger, we're over 3,000 people on subscribers on YouTube, which is just insane, right? Those are insane numbers. And I want to make sure you all know how much I appreciate that level of involvement. I get messages all the time. Twitter is always lively. And I want you all to know from me personally that I really appreciate you being here, sharing your time with us. I hope we entertain. I hope we educate. And I hope we pass on some things that you can think about when you're away from us and doing other stuff. So today we got quite a bit of stuff in the news, especially later in the day, that we're all going to touch on. We also have the possibility of a couple guests coming in. One pretty big one. I'm not sure if he's going to be here or not, but he said he's going to try to work it out. And I think you guys will have some fun. I wasn't even sure I was going to do this show, and the next thing I know, I'm doing it. So really quick, want to thank everybody for being here. Please subscribe if you're new. Turn on your notifications. Get to the things you need to so that you can try to make those shows. They're a lot of fun. Give us a thumbs up and a comment or suggestion. I'm still reading those things, no matter how snippy some of them are. And lastly, there's a couple ways you can contribute to the show. Just your comments are great. Most of our shows are pretty full, so I don't want to promise that I'll be able to get to them. Just regular comments. But if you're a subscriber, you can absolutely have that read as a subscriber. Those are highlighted to me, and I tend to bring them up more. And then lastly, obviously, super chats. Those highlight immediately, and I try to get to them as quick as I can. So I'm going to start off with Immaculate, who really wanted to do this show this evening. And he's got a couple things he's been chewing on. Where do you want to go first, Immaculate?
Where do we start? Well, I think
wait, let me interrupt you one more time. I'm sorry. Let me do a shout out for a few people. Is that cool?
It's your show, buddy.
You were just getting ramped up.
We were just ready to start the engine.
I know.
So I'm
sorry about that. Let's shout out some people. Glenn Lumen, who's a subscriber. Thank you for being here. Laura Weiss, who's not a subscriber but very valuable. I appreciate you being here. Earl Carr, one of my first subscribers. Laura has been coming quite often. I appreciate seeing her. Mike Smith is more recent, but I appreciate him being here. Let's see here. Then Blake Phillips. Oh, not first today, Blake. I'm sorry about that. And then, of course, Immaculate and Moen. AMAC, how you doing today? Let's see. Patrick. Patrick Bourne's here. Good to see you, Patrick. Let's see. Jared Jones. Ag Biochemist. Mike Smith. And Tony Washington, who always says, besmirch the Badgers. All right, here we go. Now you can get wound up. Tell us what you're thinking.
All right, well, everyone, you might have seen going on now. There's a whole lot of smoke coming up from the ACC right now in regards to Notre Dame, Stanford, SMU, and Cal. Notre Dame stepping up saying that they want to see these schools voted in. Also saying at the same time they are not willing to sign on as a full member for it. So what's the angle here? Where are they going with this? Is this to keep the ACC alive? Is this to make sure these schools have a place? We don't really know at this time, but there is certainly a whole lot of activity starting to build up.
Very good. And Moen, I know that you've been tracking this for longer than we have. What's your feeling from the Big Ten side about this event that's not an event, these Board of Regents meetings with Florida State. I didn't check right before the show. Have they announced one for tomorrow or the next day yet?
They have not as of yet.
Okay. All right. And tell everybody why those are impactful. Why does it matter?
Well, if they're going to make a formal action to withdraw from the ACC, they would need to have a Board of Trustees meeting. Florida is a sunshine law state, so they have to post that they're having the meeting and they have to post the agenda. So,
but they can immediately go into closed session after opening.
They can immediately do that. Right. It doesn't even have to be a public session, but just the fact that they're holding a session that's not scheduled.
And that actually happened today with the Clemson board meeting. They came in and went into executive session. You couldn't see anything. Then they came out and made some quick vote on a hiring, and then that was it. So we don't really know how that went.
And they went into closed session too, didn't they?
First, they went right away into it, and then they had some light business afterwards. So we don't really know what the main reason for that was.
I want to start off with this tweet that we got that contained from Deep South College Football. That's where the tweet was found, and I want to make sure I give him credit for that. This is a note from Gene Williams, who is the owner of War Chant. Moen, tell everybody what War Chant is.
They are the largest Florida State message board, I don't want to say boosters, but it's, inside info of Florida State you're going to find out there on the net.
All right, very good. I'm going to read this. Since this is a tweet, I'm just going to read the whole thing. I actually have had comments, just so everybody knows why I read any of these. I've actually had comments where there's people that are blind that are watching these shows that it helps if this stuff is spelled out. They don't have to go through their translator to get them. So I've started doing that. I'm not sure if people are going to like it or not, but that's the way it's going to be. So this is an afternoon update from today. It says, sorry for the long delay between updates. The lines have really closed up the last couple of days. Not surprisingly, FSU and others in the inner circle have things on lockdown. That means information is not coming out. This seems to correspond with a lot of FSU bigwigs being in Tallahassee the other day. Sounds like it's an informal meeting, which included golf, but probably how they were able to get around the state sunshine law, which is what Moen just described. That said, it seems like that FSU's future in the ACC, penalties with the Gore, SEC versus Big were discussed in some capacity. Now, this is where the meat of the tweet comes from, and I hope everybody is listening because this is pretty good. Despite the lockdown of the flow of information, I did hear that there have been increased chatter between FSU and Clemson in the SEC. Right away, I had a question. Is that collusion? Do you guys know?
You'd have to prove it.
Right, but at the institutional level, they can't hold those meetings, can they?
It says increased chatter.
Yeah, they can't communicate with each other to violate a contract.
Okay, all right. I heard this from two different sources the other day, but was waiting in hopes of getting a little more clarity on the nature of this chatter. Is an offer being tendered, or is this just very preliminary talk about two ACC schools jumping in the SEC at some point in the future? One highly placed Big Ten source said their conference is now proceeding ahead on the assumption that FSU and Clemson will be in the SEC soon, and as such have their eyes on North Carolina and Virginia. I've also heard Miami might be part of that. There's a special note here. It says, don't listen to what you might hear from people like Greg Sankey when it comes to the possibility of the SEC adding FSU and Clemson. No conference commissioner tips their hand before moves are made. And if you saw the show yesterday, we made note of that immediately and kind of made it a joke. Everybody knows that when Sankey's talking, and not only is it disinformation, but it's absolute smokescreen. So the fact that he came out and said they weren't meeting, in my mind, said that there was maybe something more to it, rather than just ignoring the information. And then this last paragraph describes today. The only other nugget that came my way is that ESPN is anticipating huge TV ratings for FSU LSU, of course. Mm-hmm. Also, an internal study confirmed much of what Michael Alford said, laid out at the Board of Trustees meeting in February. FSU squarely in the top 10 when it comes to college football TV ratings, and FSU is the only non-big SEC school other than Notre Dame in this rarefied air. So let's talk about this really quick. I'm going to bring everybody back, but I'm not going to let the article disappear. So, what were your first thoughts when you guys saw this? I had different thoughts than you did. I wanted to quickly review those.
Who'd you like to go first?
I know. You're talking now. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, when I first read this, first thing you read is like, okay, who is this coming from? How real is this? It's quite a long piece. So if someone is making this up, they sure did put a lot of effort into kind of connecting the dots here.
Right.
So just taking it at face value as if it's real, I look at it, some of the words they use, like increased chatter, as Mike Smith out in chat was saying, they use intermediaries. I like to say one person on a phone is talking to another person on a phone, and both of those people happen to have, someone from FSU and someone from the SEC on the phone.
Right.
So it's never like a meeting. We're not like getting together where there's going to be minutes taken and proof and evidence of collusion. It just kind of happens, and they know. We've been kind of calling for this to happen. There's no way the SEC was going to sit back and do nothing. I don't care what Sankey says to the. I've been watching Feinbaum, but he's an SEC mouthpiece. Like, he's going to let them say whatever they want through him, and that's his job, and that's fine. But I definitely think that there is some truth to this. I would expect this to happen. The interesting part at the end there, and using the FSU LSU game as a possible metric for the value of FSU in the SEC versus their value in the ACC.
Right. Or the Big Ten. Or they didn't use a Big Ten comparison, too.
Yeah, you have to have something there to compare. I don't know if you have an FSU versus a Big Ten game, but I think the big thing here is, especially when in regards to ESPN, is it worth it to them to have FSU in the SEC instead of the ACC where they already have them? Are they going to give the money up for an increased payment there?
Right.
I think that they will. I think that's going to be huge ratings. A friend of the show, Rachel, she said that it's not a fair comparison because this is the first week of the season. There's not much to compete against, but it's still a data point. It is still something to point to. So, and it can be used. Whether someone can say we can't use this or not because of this or this or this, it's still a data point, and they'll use it. So, pretty informational, I think. I thought
there was a lot there for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to chew on there.
Moen, from the Big Ten standpoint, and I know you have contacts all over. Let's put this in context, not so much about what the message says here, but on what does this mean big picture?
Well, I mean, we have to first of all decide whether this is valid information or not.
Right.
People will spread disinformation to achieve what they want.
Of course.
So there probably are factions within Florida State who want the SEC. So they could be pushing this narrative out there to Gene. So the other part that just doesn't ring true to me, that the Big Ten is looking at North Carolina and Virginia. The Big Ten would look at North Carolina. I don't think the Big Ten's got Virginia that high on the list where they would be looking at Virginia over Miami.
Yeah, I think Miami is not being there is a big deal. Like they're trying to keep that under wraps, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know who the Big Ten source they're quoting in there. I mean, that sounds like somebody who's from the SEC territory who thinks that's how the Big Ten's thinking now.
Right.
No, they're going for brands too. So they take Miami before they would take UVA.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Especially if all things are equal. The one thing about Miami is they're a private school, so they can sort of set their own mark too. They can set what their own expectations are according to the restrictions on the gore and whatnot. They're not really trying to beat anybody else's number. Really quick, we've gone over 100 people watching us. Appreciate that, everybody being here. New to the channel, please subscribe and turn on your notifications. That's a reminder to everybody. I've had a lot of people asking me why they're not getting the reminders, and it's because it's not a Twitter notification. You have to turn your notifications on YouTube, and I think that's just a failure to communicate on the YouTube site. The other thing is make sure you leave a comment or suggestion. Tonight we're going to do some heavy comments, especially when hopefully we get our guest here unless he runs into some challenges. So if you want to do that, obviously we're going to go through regular ones, but super chats always stand out, as well as subscribers. So let's talk next level. Oh, by the way, big announcement tomorrow night, same time. Bob Thompson is going to be on this show. Bob Thompson, ex-Fox Sports president, is going to be on this show. And to be honest, I'm not sure he's condescended to too many shows at my level. So I take that as a pretty big deal. And I'm inviting all of you to come back tomorrow, same time, 8:30 Eastern. And it's going to be Immaculate and I and the Wild Ute. And we're going to ask some questions and really see if we can get some more out of him than he gave in that interview yesterday at 365. I don't think we will, because David Smoke is a stud, but it's quite possible that we'll do that. So I appreciate everybody passing that along, and it'll be great. It'll be an amazing show tomorrow. All right, so let's talk next steps then. If Notre Dame, let's jump to Notre Dame. So now Notre Dame is agitating, right? They're agitating for this further information to possibly get Cal and Stanford into the ACC, which is ironic because a lot of people think that their next step is leaving to the Big Ten. So how does somebody like Stanford analyze this? Yeah, you helped them get into the ACC, but then turn around, Notre Dame bails out and it loses you. What do you guys think about that, Moen? I'm going to start with you, since I know you've spoken about Notre Dame for well over 2 years, I think.
Well, again, we're going to have to figure out who is releasing that information. Stanford and Cal have made overtures to the Big Ten. Is Stanford and Cal putting that out there to say, hey, look, Notre Dame wants us. If you grab us, you'll get Notre Dame? Is Notre Dame putting it out there to lean on the ACC members and say, if you don't take these schools, you're going to lose us as a partial member?
Right.
I mean, who knows? Stanford and Cal to the ACC really is a stretch. And it's not because they're bad schools. They're really great academic schools. But as much complaining about travel as people have made, that is a huge travel nightmare.
Yeah.
To have two schools. I mean, if you were upset the Big Ten was going to leave the LA schools out on an island, at least Lincoln, Nebraska was, I don't know, the closest one. Who's the closest ACC school to the Bay Area?
It's going to be somebody in maybe Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville probably.
Louisville might be the
across the
west.
Entire country, and that's all sports all the time.
Right, and they're the ones who complain about things like carbon neutral into the atmosphere, right? Or they complain about their budgets being blown up because of travel, and they said that was the main reason not to blow up the Pac-12. Is it was all travel. So I don't know. This seems disingenuous at best to me. I want to, before I leave you, Moen, I want to bring this up and I'll make it bigger so everybody can see it. Pat Forty did this tweet right before we came on the air, and it says, update, multiple sources say there is momentum adding Cal and Stanford, but it's unclear now whether the 75% threshold can be reached. If presidents don't think they have the numbers, they likely won't do a formal vote. I don't know what to make of that. Can you? What anything else to add, Moen?
Well, yeah. It'll have to be, regardless. The vote comes in, it's going to be announced as a unanimous vote.
Okay.
Even if it is 12 out of 15, what happens is they say, okay, well, here's this. Everybody votes yes, because you don't want to have a vote on adding someone to your conference and have it seem like there's people who don't want them there. So,
of course,
75 is probably the straw poll threshold. And then if they hit that straw poll threshold, they'll do the formal vote and everybody will vote yes. But they probably don't have the votes here because there's just not. Cal and Stanford and SMU don't bring enough to the ACC. I understand why they're doing it. They don't want to end up like the Pac, where they don't add people in time.
Right.
But again, you're reaching. It's a reach.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. This message or a comment here from Mike Smith. He says, "Please tell me the ACC not going to bow down to Notre Dame without Notre Dame going full member." This is the question I have about Notre Dame. Why are they still being deferred to? I know that Swarbrick is all powerful and all these other things, but at this point, how many fan bases have been pissed off that they continue to carry the vote, basically the strength of an entire conference by themselves? I don't understand why that doesn't get blown up.
Like it or not, they were a big part of the signing of the extension of the Gore in 2016 that took it to 2036. Without that, if that is to be torn apart, their deal only goes to 2027. So, I mean, I know it doesn't make a lot of sense to folks, but they are pretty important to that whole deal right there.
Okay. Now, Immaculate, what Mona was just talking about, what are you thinking about that going forward?
About the vote? Or
no, about Notre Dame and the way that they're handling this thing with because I personally think Stanford and at least Stanford is like today, all of a sudden it was announced they have over $1 billion in the athletic fund. They're just not spending the money. Yeah. We've never heard that before. They've never talked about money. So that there was some points to that messaging today. And so I'm just wondering what you think they're going to do with that. And I personally think the ACC is being played for a Big Ten invite.
I think Stanford can do whatever the heck they want. I think they have enough money. They have the capability. I've even said to myself, I could see them joining the Ivy League someday just by themselves and having all their students travel over there to compete with those people, to rub elbows with those people. So that way, you know, you make relationships with those people. It's just kind of how those type of schools work. That's why the Ivy League sticks to themselves for them games and they don't even go to the championship games. I could see them doing it. And so that's kind of the same way here when we're looking at this going, why not this conference? Why not that conference? Well, we can see in the ACC, especially if they bring in Stanford and Cal and SMU, Notre Dame and the rest of the private universities that form up in that conference, they form kind of a coalition of sorts.
Okay.
It's a different perspective, I'd imagine, than most of these large flagships and state universities. So, you know, if they're in a time where they see they're being squeezed by these large universities, this would be a gathering of like-minded schools.
Awesome.
Okay. Cal. Cal is the question. I was going to say Cal is the question. They don't have the same capabilities as a state university, money available to them. The big question is, do they get that $2 to $10 million from UCLA that was promised to them through the Regency situation to allow UCLA to go? If they get that full amount, I think their pay to the East is paid for.
Is that going to be enough though? Because they don't want the travel. No, it's not about the money. I'm talking about the time. Because they keep complaining about the student athlete experience and all this stuff.
But what do they really mean? You know what I mean? There's what they say. And
then there's subtext to all of it, obviously.
Yeah. There's what they really, you know, when it comes down to it, we don't like this, but this is our best option type of a thing. And we'll get used to it.
All right. Then let's jump ahead to Washington State, which I know is another topic you guys are really interested in. So I'll bring this up so you can know which article that we went through. There were several on Washington State today, but the fallout from the Pac-12 blowing up continues to this day. There's all kinds of discussions and blaming and all these other things. And before we get on to that, I want to remind everybody, if you want your comment to be read, either make it a super chat or I'm going to try to get some subscriber ones in here. I just want to make sure you're not being ignored. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and come back. Okay. So Washington State, this just blows me away. Kurt Schultz says, well, I don't even know if I want to read this whole thing because it's just so frustrating. He basically blamed the entire thing on people that are ambiguous. He wasn't pointing a finger at any one thing. It's the entity that is the Pac-12 that was the problem. Uh-huh. And that is so, for me, it's frustrating because he was part of the problem, right?
Big part.
Schwartz was, he and the AD or the president from Oregon State were the ones putting out all this disinformation for an entire year. And if anything, it just made the pain worse and worse and worse until it finally blew up. So how do we lean into that and not turn around and just say the whole thing was his fault?
Well, I mean, was he what was he being told? You know, that's the thing. If George Kliavkoff is telling these guys, no, this is what it is, and then they go out and tell this lie, are they lying? No, they're just repeating what their commissioner is telling them.
Right.
And if the commissioner's pumping it up their ass, that, you know, oh no, it's rainbows and sunshine and all these partners and this new partner came, you know, the new partner, and that's part of the reason that Oregon and Washington, I should say, Washington was upset, was at Media Day, PAC Media Day, they had mentioned this additional partner that came to the table.
Right.
And then they showed up to present the deal, and there was no additional partner.
No,
and they just
were
tried
lying
to
the whole time.
gloss over that. And, you know, so at the end of the day, it is the leadership in the PAC. And it goes back to Larry Scott and the terrible decisions that were made there. But, I mean, yeah, I don't want to blame them until I know for sure. Were they making it up, or was George Kliavkoff making it up and they were just repeating what George told them?
I find it hard to believe Kliavkoff would do that. He was bossed around by the presidents of these schools. I just don't, he doesn't come across to me as somebody that would be that forward. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Nobody knows. I mean,
right. Immaculate.
Everybody's got their own narrative.
Yeah. I just want to point out one thing. When you look at that piece and you look at where it's from, you see it's from ESPN.
Right.
And so they're out there looking. Every single thing I see from them is all about Washington and Oregon and the Big Ten. I don't want to make too many aspirations, but they do have, you know, a part to play in this. The whole SEC, ACC, Big Ten drama. So when I see stuff coming from there, that's just entirely blaming Washington and Oregon for stepping out of this, and that's what caused the entire breakup of the PAC, not Colorado, not USC, UCLA, not Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah, but just entirely on Washington and Oregon. It's a little bit of a stretch.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I thought it was important that we should talk about it. It's definitely something that we shouldn't ignore, right?
No, it's just interesting to see Schultz now going that route to, and I don't think what he's saying is wrong. I'm sure that was a very awkward moment, but just to kind of be like Washington and Oregon's choice is what killed the PAC. I'd say that's a bit of a stretch.
So let's come back to this article this is the last part of all the sort of travel around the states we're going to do, at least right now. The last one that I wanted to bring up is the SMU story, right? So just to shorthand it for everybody, for one thing, a great article is this article done by Brett McMurphy, Action Network. You can find the link on Twitter. The title is Notre Dame pushing for ACC to Stanford. SMU would join without revenue. So, you know what? One of you guys want to know? I'm happy to read it or summarize it unless one of you guys feel strongly about it.
Oh, you go right ahead.
Okay. All right.
Can't read it as well on my screen as you have it.
Oh, you know what? It's probably not big enough. I apologize. All right. So basically what's going on here, and I'll read this. So the SMU is looking to join the ACC without getting any media revenue for 5 to 7 years. They would go in and make no money. They would have no share in the revenue, and basically buy their way into the league by offering their games up for free. And to do that, and to be able to continue to function, they're going to use booster money that would subsidize them to the tune of $40 or $50 million a year. Right now, they're only somewhere in the low teens, I think. So that would be a major change to the way that they've been operating. But these boosters are that into it to push them into the ACC conference. So I thought there was a really good question or a statement here in this. It says, Notre Dame initiated us bringing on Stanford and Cal. and continues to push, yet Notre Dame won't join the ACC as a full member. Then right here it says, while Notre Dame continues to try to build support for Stanford and Cal, and I'll highlight this, SMU, damn it, is trying to a unique approach to give the American from the American to the ACC. The Mustangs said they would not require any league revenue for the first 5 to 7 years of joining. The ACC's cut revenue rights, bowl games and whatever, amount to about $42 million right now. So the Mustangs, even at a reduced amount, would be bypassing a potentially $50 million over a 5-year span. So, and the article goes on and goes into some detail about how they would fund it and what the trade-off would be for the money. But let's just call it what it is. They are bald-faced trying to buy their way into a conference with a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that's in chat, I want to hear from everybody on this, because I'm of two minds. My first mind is, everybody else had to wait their turn, right? Everybody else had to sort of go through the different knocks to get there. My BYU Cougars included in that, regardless of how they had been perceived as a P5, which is absolutely true. They didn't have the codified access. So now you got a school that basically has nothing but oil money behind it. I guess there's some venture capital and some other financing methods too. But at the end of the day, they would pay $40 to $50 million a year to the school to make up for what they're not getting from the ACC, because they trade that out. The second part of my mind is, man, that's ballsy. Why not? You got nothing to lose. Well, all you can do is ask, right? So I think, Immaculate, you've had enough time to think about that. What do you think's going on here? And do you think it is actually a possibility this could happen?
Yes. First thing I'd say, this is a good one for us to remember to bring up tomorrow, because what I see in this is, okay, we have SMU in Texas and Stanford and California, obviously. Right. Two big states to try to get a better in-state rating to possibly put in the ACC network. When you see the ACC network being the biggest problem for FSU, is this maybe meant to be like, hey, look, we're trying to get the ACC network out wider. I know SMU, everyone will say it does not get you Dallas. This isn't about Dallas. This is about having a school in the state. And generally speaking, this then gives the ACC and ESPN a chance to then push the ACC network onto in-market pricing. So they would get paid a lot more per basically subscription to it. So there's definitely ACC network money involved with this. It gets you in a stadium in Dallas, Texas. I don't care if all of Dallas likes SMU. That's a place for the rest of the ACC to be seen there. So I like SMU for that. I mean, it's not getting you all the people to care about that, but it's a great – Notre Dame's going to want to play there. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to turn that into a rivalry and be part of the 6-game schedule. So it just comes down to whether or not you believe that these donors have this kind of money to bankroll this. And when you look at what FSU is potentially willing to do, and what everyone knows SMU's got very big bankrollers, I would say that there is definitely some fire to this smoke.
Okay. All right. We'll break it down a little bit more as soon as I hear from Moen. So Moen, you come from the Big Ten, where everybody really has to earn to get there. What do you think about that?
This is all a scheme devised to – the ACC needs to generate more revenue. The only way they're holding on to their teams like Florida State and Clemson is an uneven revenue share.
Right.
They can't – the other schools aren't going to let them take from them, so they've got to bring new people on to take from. It's essentially a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
SMU's going to come in and make no money.
Yep.
But ESPN will pay the ACC for SMU. Well, those 5 years, that money's going to be divided among Clemson and Florida State.
Right.
In addition, the ACC network's getting on those marketplaces. That's going to bring more money to the ACC. That's going to go to Clemson and Florida State. This is all designed to try and keep Florida State and Clemson in the conference. And the only way to do that is to improve their revenue. And if you can't take from the people you have in the conference, you do anything you can to get revenue. And if SMU wants to do that and lose that 150 some million over that 5 years so that it can be divided up among Florida State and Clemson, more power to SMU. I mean, good on them.
So,
But that's the whole reason this is being done.
so we know what the four things that Bob Thompson has laid out several times that drive revenue: fan engagement, brand recognition, rivalries, and market. And those are pretty much the order that he laid them out. Tomorrow we have Bob Thompson on our show. I'm going to have it actually ask him what they should be. Is that the order that they actually should go in? He might not answer it. Bob's very cagey, but I think that's an important thing, because when these presidents are trying to decide who to bring in and who has value, at the end of the day, and Moen just absolutely bottom lined it, is who the hell cares? Let them in the club, because they know eventually that the ACC is probably going to blow up anyway. So bring them in. Let them be P5 for 5 minutes and a cup of coffee, knowing that the long-term outlook for the ACC right now, unless something changes them universally better, is very short-lived. We're looking at an A4 right away. A is an autonomous conference. They have voting rights that are supersedes other conferences. And right now there's 5 of them, which is the P5, but the power rating's going away, and we're now going to this autonomous rating, and we're basically at a 4 right now. And once the ACC blows up, that'll be a 3 with the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10. So why not let them in? Steal all their let them on the playground yard, steal their lunch money, and then leave them high and dry when the end of the day, because they can leave them in a dying ACC. Doesn't hurt them at all.
Yeah.
No,
and
it doesn't hurt them at all.
Go ahead.
They're also buying a seat at that autonomy vote table as well. But when they
for a short time,
well,
they're guaranteeing it for a short time.
We'll see how that goes. Like the ACC could end up a haven for a bunch of private universities, so we shall see. They are looking like they could be an A4, but they still have an uphill climb.
Yeah. Moen, you were starting to say something?
Right. I mean, if there's enough money to stop Florida State from leaving, that's enough. That's all this is they have to stop Florida State and Clemson from leaving. Because Florida State and Clemson to the ACC is USC, UCLA to the Pac-12. Once those two brands leave, you cannot stop the ACC from eventually collapsing.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. Now I'm going to get to Summit Hawk, who's one of our recent subscribers. Thank you for being here, Summit. He says Notre Dame, even if they have never moved, may push this implosion faster because of the report of them wanting West Coast ads. So this is the thing that really confused me. Stanford is not dumb. They might not be intuitive, but they're not dumb when it comes to these media rights. They know what's going on. They just don't want to participate for the most part, think they're above it. So if Notre Dame says, hey, come along, I want you in the ACC and it'll be great, and we'll pat each other on the back and everything else, do they have the balls to turn around and walk away from them if the NBC negotiation doesn't go the way they wanted, or other things don't happen and they leave to the Big Ten or even the SEC?
Oh, absolutely. You want to get on a rant about Notre Dame?
Well, I'm not necessarily wanting to, but we're talking about it.
Yeah. If Notre Dame accepts the invite from the Big Ten in the 1990s, we don't even have this conversation right now. Notre Dame has been pushing conference realignment because of their unwillingness to join a conference for the last 30 plus years.
Right.
So, I mean, do you think Notre Dame cares about Notre Dame? That's it.
Right.
So, yes, they're just going to push and push and push until they have to join a conference.
This is the other thing.
Who gets in the way.
this is the other thing that's been debated for the last year. There's so many rumors swirling around Notre Dame, whether it was a partial vote they had because only part of their sports are in the conference, or if it's a whole vote. And Jim here is saying, yeah, it was confirmed today that Notre Dame went to the ACC as a partial. No one knew it until the press conference that they are now a full voting member. So that's a big deal. Now as the ACC is constituted, they have a full voting share. They're basically the swing vote forever. And it's surprising to me that I guess the ACC needed him really bad when he came on. So maybe they were willing to bend over for that, but that seems really extreme to me. What do you think, Immaculate?
I'm kind of keeping an eye on some things I hear in the chat. Remind me again, what was that little point you just made?
Mine?
Yes. Sorry, I was watching these guys in chat.
That's okay. Rowdy. I was asking. I don't even know what I asked you. Mo, do you remember what I asked him? I say it. I don't remember it. Come on. You're supposed to be paying attention to me. Some about Notre Dame having a full vote rather than a half
full
vote.
Membership.
Yeah.
While not actually being a full member.
Yeah. I do agree with a lot of what I've seen coming from folks that they're not going to go full membership. And as far as them having that was probably part of the negotiation that happened back in 2016.
Right.
That in order for signing on, in order for them getting the gore with everyone, that they then got a vote. They've probably had this for a long time, and it's really just coming out to matter right now. But
right. I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
Really quick, picked up another 40 viewers. Appreciate that. It's great to see everybody. We're averaging a lot more now, growing the channel, and I really appreciate everybody being here. Quick note before anybody leaves: tomorrow we have Bob Thompson, former president of Fox Sports, is going to be here, and we're going to talk all realignment. We're going to talk rivalries. And I hope we get to the point where we can even take a question or two from the audience. I'm not promising that, but that's in the third or fourth time I have him on this show. But we really hope you come. This is going to be a fantastic show. I'm hoping we start off with like 200 people watching. So if you want to be here, please subscribe, turn on your notifications, and then let your friends and relatives know about us on Twitter. Forward our shows and have people come in and get engaged, because we love to have that. Let's see here. There's another comment I had, and I think I lost it. Let's see. Let's talk about this. Okay, folks, but this is Blake Phillips, by the way. Seriously, what is it that the disrespect towards the Big 12? It gets old and laughable. I hear people say like Duke would never go to the Big 12. Virginia would never. What do you guys think about that? Is that starting to change? Is the perception of the Big 12 different now that they picked up the Four Corners?
Well, I definitely think that the perception is changing. I think if what Blake might be talking about is that lingering perception. Not everyone's going to be up to date on everything that's going on. Some of their opinions on the Big 12 might be based upon the older Big 12 rather than what's going on right this moment. So I would just say if you're a big Big 12 fan and you hear this, just remember you've been going through this for over a decade now. So I would just brush your shoulder off and just kind of be like, things are a little bit better in there. And if situation arose to where those schools were looking over there, maybe for basketball, yeah, I could see it. I don't know if I would say that that's their top pick at this point, but I could potentially see it in the future if things happen in a certain way.
All right, very good. Oh, Moen, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, last year the Pac-12 was never going away.
Yeah.
60 days ago, Colorado was never leaving the Pac-12.
Yeah.
A month ago, the Pac-12 would be saved and Colorado would be the only defection. I mean, to quote a great song, never say never. I mean, it's Duke would go to the Big 12. I mean, if there's no viable option, you have to go to one of these A3s. You have to.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Immaculate.
I was just going to add to that. The Duke is the same situation as Stanford. They're both in the same confederation that I've talked about. So the same rule applies to them, if it's a rule, but I'm strongly believe it's a rule that they couldn't join the Big Ten without a major change in what research library they're part of. So I would say Duke's actually a better pick for the Big 12 than they are for the Big 10 if things came down to it. And I think that then they might even want to pick the Big 12 over the SEC if they want to get on the basketball side of things. So it's not a horrible idea for them.
I think we just need to be open-minded. We've seen
Right.
Colorado broke the dam, glass ceiling's gone, all bets are off, right? And it's not stopping. Everybody wants to wind down. I wanted to wind down to get ready for the season. BYU's first in the Big 12 and everything, but this is just I can't let it go. Like our show isn't about reporting on individual schools. We'll do a little of that, but our show is the commentary, the analysis, the give and take with the viewers with their comments and super chats, and it's just you can't walk away from. This is once in a lifetime stuff we're dealing with the realignment right now. And I feel really honored to be able to be here and do it with you guys. Let me get to another comment.
Just real quick point on that, if I could. Just
Yeah.
to point out to that, if people think that this is, August 15th is going to come and this is over, keep in mind what we saw in that little piece. They're using FSU and LSU possibly as a gauge. That means this is carrying into the football season. Talk's not going to be over when football starts.
Yes.
Not until consolidation is over. This is here to stay for the long while until this is done.
Yeah, I agree. Summit Hawk, again, one of our subscribers says, I'm an environmental scientist, but carbon stuff is BS. I'm not going to get into that, but since he's a subscriber, I wanted to put his comment on the board. Yeah, either one of you guys want to comment on that?
Take it up with Cal. Cal claims that, so
it's true.
I mean,
they do.
I don't understand how Cal could be so against UCLA doing it, and then suddenly Cal.
Yeah, they're okay with carbon.
It kind of shows you how much they're okay with travel when their travel's way worse than UCLA will face.
Right. Opie's here. Hey, Opie, good to see you. Been a minute. Good to see you back on the show. He's replying to Mike Smith. He says, the SEC Media Network is based in Charlotte, about 28 miles from UNC. So take that for what it's worth. Let's talk about UNC and Duke. Every breakdown that I've seen sees them breaking up in the next phase. I really think that's unfortunate. I mean, almost more than any other separation we've had in the country. Duke, UNC.
It's basketball. It's that simple of an explanation. I don't know if you'd say a whole bunch more on that, but it's basketball. And the political connection between UNC and North Carolina State probably matters more for realignment and consolidation than UNC and Duke's basketball rivalry.
Very fair. Moen, you want to say anything to
that? I think it's also important to remember that just because these people are in different conferences doesn't mean we can't protect rivalries.
Yep.
I know Oregon State and Washington State both kind of scoffed at the idea of continuing their rivalries.
They're a little
with
bitter.
Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, they were
But,
bitter.
I mean, that's something that, the Big Ten would probably allow them to do. Immaculate can speak more to that with the Cy-Hawk Trophy with Iowa versus Iowa State.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can be in different conferences and continue a rivalry.
You can, but I got to tell you, living here in Arizona now with the Territorial Cup between Arizona and Arizona State, it just means so much to them having it that last game of the season. One of them can possibly ruin the season for the other one, whereas the Iowa State game is the beginning of the season, and we use it as they use it as kind of
the kickoff.
Like, are we ready for the season type of a game? And that's still great, and they still exist, but I gotta say, like, there is a bit of a loss if some of these get split up. So there is that involved.
There's not much we can do about that.
Nope.
By the way, what we talked about a little bit earlier, questions for Bob Thompson. Did you write that down? That one we both agreed we should ask him? You're supposed to be taking notes because I don't do that. Immaculate.
But you can see me, and I'm not writing stuff down right now.
Well, I guess we lose it. Then we lose it to the ether. Then, Ute Fan Ivan. I love Ute Fan Ivan. Find him on Twitter. Fantastic guy. He's been on our show before. I really, really appreciate him being here. If you guys want to be picked up and have a kind word given to you every day, follow Ute Fan Ivan. And yeah, anyways, a big salute to him. Good to see you, Ute. Sorry. Good to see you, Ivan. He says, "Sup, guys? Hope everyone's having a great night. Thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you, Ivan." All right, let's see here. Moving right along. Mr. Monkey says, one of our regulars, good to have you. Stanford to the ACC is ridiculous. Let's get a couple more. Tumas, again, great to see you, man. He says, North Dakota, UT North. Do you guys know what that means? Is that Texas North? What's he saying there?
Hey, I got me.
Okay. All right.
He's saying Notre Dame is University of Texas North.
Oh, okay. All right.
Had to figure that one out there. It's a good one,
I'm glad you did it because I couldn't figure it out. Let's see here. I want to call out Sharice Armstead. I think you're a new viewer, Sharice. It's good to see you. Saying hi, everybody. Yeah, absolutely. And then
big fan.
Let's get to another one here. Moff Professor. I would think Stanford and Cal would only go ACC in football only. What do you guys think about that? Because I thought that was a great idea. They go football only, and then they put everything else in the West Coast Conference.
I kind of was thinking that too, but Stanford's Olympic sports are actually very important to them. If they were to do that, they'd probably have to drop them down to like the WAC conference and the FCS, and it's a lowering of competition, and they're pretty big at filling up the Olympic team with people. So I think that one's kind of tough. I think that they'd actually rather just buy themselves a jet and fly all of their Olympic sports out east.
That's crazy. Moen, do you want to say anything else to that?
I agree. They'd have to go in for all sports, but I still think it's such a ridiculous concept. It's Stanford and Cal going all the way across the country for the ACC.
Yep, fair enough. Blake Phillips is the epitome of I'm going to get worth for my $2. PSA, if it itches, put cream on it. That's nice to know. Is that a personal experience you're expressing there? Is that something that you've done yourself? I'm teasing. Let's see here. Jim Choi says SMU was the only school to receive the death penalty. That says it all about SMU good old boys. Now, again, the problem with the way they cheated is they got caught. Everybody else was cheating in the 80s too.
And everything that they did is now legal.
Yeah, it's ironic it's now legal, but honestly, SMU was stupid. They just got caught. Every other school that was in the top 20, they were definitely brazen. There's no doubt about that.
They just did it. I mean, how do you think they got O.J. Simpson? Doesn't he play there, or wasn't it? Was someone?
No,
else,
he played at USC.
No. OJ played at USC.
No. It was
You're thinking of Craig James, who killed
Craig
5
James.
Or allegedly,
Eric
Dickerson.
Eric Dickerson.
SMU.
Yeah.
All right.
They did have a big name there.
Bill G's one of our subscribers. Great to see you here tonight, Bill. Appreciate it. I see little risk to the ACC in allowing SMU on those terms. Do we all agree to that? I don't. If they can do it, let them in.
Seems like a win-win. That's
dying.
If those donors have that much money to throw at it, that's props to them.
Not fair enough. Let's see. David Hackett, another subscriber, says, a paid subscriber. Cannot believe FSU and Clemson will want to travel to the West Coast, not to mention other ACC schools for all sports, lots of travel costs. Yep, we've been saying that very much. I agree 100%. This is a topic we've touched on the last several shows. Again, do you guys see this changing? The Big 12 needs to wait and grab North Carolina State, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh. But there's a question whether North Carolina State and Virginia Tech will be available, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we all agree?
I mean, I totally get it. I mean, they do seem like they'd be great schools for that league, but state politics might step in the way on that.
Yeah, that's never good. I'm going to tell you that right now. Let's see. Moen, do you want to add anything to that?
Pitt and Louisville are must-haves for the Big 12. North Carolina State and Virginia Tech are wants. But again, you're going to have to take UVA if you take Virginia Tech.
Right.
And I think North Carolina State is probably going to get forced. as much as UNC doesn't want it, they're probably going to get saddled with North Carolina
Yeah.
State.
Yep.
It's the cost of doing business, right? Isn't that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
North,
Yeah, it's
North
just the
Carolina
cost of,
State has a lot more graduates than USC does, so there's going to be lots of folks in that state legislature that are North Carolina State grads.
If you're new to the channel and just got here, we picked up about 25 more live viewers. Appreciate it. I want everybody to know I'm glad you're here. We try to stay positive here if this is the first time. And you're not going to get a lot of dunking or nasty talk if you're watching us. We talk about things that are in the news, topical, and then we also talk big picture stuff in college sports. So we really appreciate you being here. The Big 12's the third best conference in the country. We've started to say those things as declarative rather than a question. So if you come here, that's what you're going to hear. You can agree or disagree, but right now the Big 12 is number 3 in the country. And then one last thing I want to mention is all of the power conferences are now changing to autonomous conferences. So you're looking at an A3 or an A4 and whatever number of years of conferences, especially because the Pac-12 just ceased to exist. All right. Soap. I'm not sure I've seen you here, Soap. If you've been here and I missed you, I apologize, but thanks for your appearance and your comment. SMU will be using tax dollars. Donate it to SMU or pay it in taxes. If you gross $30 million in revenue, your tax bill is $10 million. Each well produces approximately $900,000 a year. You guys have anything to add to that?
Well, if that's the soap we know, I think that might be the same soap that calls into Greg as far as the details of that.
I appreciate you being here, Soap.
I'm not in the oil business, but that seems like it would be correct. I mean,
the part that I would maybe take up a question about is SMU will be using tax dollars. If it's a donation, that's not a tax dollar. They'll tax
but what
the
he's
money.
saying is, someone is donating money to SMU to lower their taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, it would be money that should be going to taxes going to SMU.
Basically, money that would be going to the government is not going to go to putting SMU in the ACC. Wonderful.
Okay. All right.
That's one of those the donations of taxes issues that I'm not a big fan of. But hey, they're just using the laws as they are there.
Let's see here. Mike Smith says, like that, Mark, they would be ideal. Not sure Virginia Tech would leave Virginia, but that would be perfect. Moen just mentioned it. If you missed it, what is it? The district attorney or the state's attorney
general.
Attorney General, thank you, came out and said that those two schools are not going to be separated in any realignment. They would block it. They'd sue. That's a pretty big deal, obviously. So. Let's see here. Let's get to a super chat from our Webb. Dedicated viewer. Appreciate it, Webb. Good to see you here. He says, Balmer, the A5 is an official NCAA designation. We've been talking about that. That has to be revoked by vote. P5 is an unofficial term that was, I believe, made up by one of the commissioners or maybe one of the media companies. But it says they are not official and officially the same thing. So one has meaning and is disappearing, which is the P5, and one has meaning and basically carries a lot of weight in negotiations for media deals, and all that type of stuff. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Just a little bit to that. He's absolutely right. You can still use the term P5 and still refer to it. No problem. We just refer to them as the A5 or the A4, A3 because that is the official term. And if you're hearing any of these officials or well-connected folks up there talking about them, they will now use the A term. This has existed since 2015, yet now we hear this happening a lot more. So there's generally a reason for that. So just to kind of get people thinking along those lines, we use that. But the P term is more, like you're saying, an unofficial, informal term now at this point.
Here's another comment from, I appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much, Webb. Check it out is talking to Patrick Bourne here. He says, isn't SMU a nonprofit school? Doesn't matter tax write-off. I think there could potentially be tax implications if money is donated and goes directly to a function of the purpose for it was a function donation and is being used differently than other donations are being used. I think there's some potential there.
I'm not a tax attorney either, so
Right. Okay, we can move on.
Yeah.
Opie says the SEC has 2 out of the conference rivals, Georgia Tech, and SC and Clemson. And of course, the 2 that they hated each other so much they would not go forward, Texas and Texas A&M, and Missouri and Kansas. So it can be done if they want. Yeah, I don't think there's much to add to that. Do you guys want to add anything? He's talking about the rivalries there.
Oh yeah, when we were talking about that earlier. Yeah,
Yep.
It just involves all parties. If they want to do it, they can do it. It's going to get tougher in the future though, as these conference schedules get bigger. If they go to 9 and 10 games.
Absolutely. Opie, sorry, David Hackett's replying to Opie here. He says you forgot Louisville, Kentucky, and FSU in Florida. So I have heard Louisville mentioned to the SEC. I know it sounds like an outside get, but do you guys think that there's much smoke to go to that?
if it happens, it's because of Kentucky politics that it happens.
Okay.
If you remember, Mitch McConnell, who's a senator from Kentucky,
Right.
really
Yep.
pushed to get Louisville into the ACC when it looked like, I forget who the team was that the ACC was considering.
I think it was West Virginia, wasn't it?
West Virginia, wasn't it?
Was it West Virginia? Okay.
Yeah, they took West
Mitch
Virginia's slot. At least that's what everybody said.
Yeah. I just remember Mitch McConnell got involved, and for some reason, it wouldn't shock me if it came down to it that Mitch McConnell would try and pull some strings again to get Louisville into the SEC. But otherwise, I think they're a more natural fit for the Big 12.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We've got super chat here from Dabo Sweeney. Thank you very much, Dabo Sweeney. FedEx was willing to put up $10 million to get Memphis in a Power 5. That looks like chump change now to SMU's donors. FedEx will need to dig much deeper. That Dabo Sweeney, I thought that exact thing when I heard about, not so much about SMU, but it's about the other schools that are out there that are G5 that have big donor bases. There are several. I mean, Justin Timberlake could come in and take care of. Is he a Tulane? Which one is he over? He wants. Oh gosh, is it Tulane? Was his alma mater? Or at least that's the school he supported back during like 2010, 2011. You guys don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
I'm not a Justin Timberlake fan either, so
I like Justin.
I'm missing on all of them tonight.
That's all right. Doesn't matter. So the potential though for these other schools to take the same path to get forward, if SMU actually does this and nobody sues and wins, do you guys think that it could potentially open sort of a back door into some of these leagues?
The only league that would happen is the ACC.
I would agree with that.
I don't think the Big 12 would go in for those shenanigans. And again, it's just basically going to be, you're going to have Clemson and Florida State getting an unequal revenue share in the ACC to prevent the ACC from falling apart.
Right.
And I think we have enough history to see how these unequal revenue shares ultimately end up working out. It's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. So,
agreed. You want to add anything to that, Immaculate?
No, yeah, I'd never really put much into those when we heard, we're going to do the unequal revenue and all that. It doesn't make up the difference, and it never will. It's just kind of might be part of an overall solution, a small part, but that's about it.
Sounds good. I'm going to go through a few here that are sort of tied together. Charles Dim doing an explanation. He says power is slang. They always were autonomous 5. They
always were.
True.
We're just kind of taking note that people in power are actually using the A terminology more now. Everyone
I
kind
think
of
the
just
P was slang by a media member. It was that or it was an AD or something. I remember when it happened, but all right, another one here. Craig Kirsch, who's obviously one of our frequent viewers. He says Fox isn't paying $75 million a year to get North Carolina State in the Big. Just not happening. Moen, what do you say to that?
I don't disagree, but I mean, I think with the North Carolina situation is they both have to be in an equal position. So you could have UNC in the Big and North Carolina State in the SEC, and I think that would be enough
But
to
why
chill
would they?
them out.
But
Yes.
even in the SEC, they're not worth even $60 million.
They're not, but if that's the only school you can get in the North Carolina market, that's the only school you can get.
Interesting.
The SEC might still want to stay in that. The SEC wants to get into North Carolina. We know that.
Right.
The Big Ten wants to get in North Carolina. The SEC wants to get in Virginia. The Big Ten wants to get in Virginia. I think the UVA VT is much more. They're going to have to go to the same conference.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
North Carolina State and UNC, it can be one can be in the Big and one could be in the SEC, but they're going to have to both be in one of those conferences.
Okay. I wanted to first, again, we're another moment where we've got a second to remind everybody to subscribe if you're new to the channel and turn on your notifications. If you want to be involved in the chat, as you've seen other people, you could do a super chat. I am trying to get to others, subscribers first, but love you guys' comments. You guys drive the show. We're not here for us. We're here for you. And to generate these conversations, we really value you. One thing I haven't mentioned today is I've actually got some gear inbound. I got Oklahoma State something. And then I got a couple other schools that are sending me things. If you want to add to this collection behind me, I've got what is right now my odds and ends of my own. But I would love to put up your gear. So if you want to do something like that, send me a DM in Twitter, and I'm happy to give you my address, and I'll promote it. And I'll probably wear it for an entire show if I receive it. So if that's an incentive for you, I don't know. I'll tell you this, I'm not singing a song like Greg does. That's not going to happen. All right. Let's see here. Mike Smith says, Bomber, keep an eye on those two Big Ten guys on your show. Are you guys trying to steal the shiner or something?
No, I think he's just trying to sow division within us, but we're
He is. We're unified. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. Me and this guy, we're good. There you go, Mike.
Nick M says, just remember, if UNC, North Carolina State, and Virginia Tech are package deals to either conference, that opens up other schools from the wanted list to must-grab list for the Big 12. Things will shake out, and we agree with that. All of us agree with it. And Scoop says 3. I think that's in reference to how many conferences eventually. Yeah. And here's the list. These are great, by the way. Soap says 3, and then Devil Frog. Devil Frog, one of my old partners. Great to see you here, Devil. He says SEC, Big 12, and then who are those guys? Is that supposed to be the Big 10?
I guess so.
I assume so. I guess having the most championships of any conference.
That's
in
it. TCU
athletics
is
doesn't
off
go
the
very
list.
far.
No chance
Yep.
anymore.
All right.
All
all
A&M.
right. Let's see here. Syracuse from Charles says Syracuse had best viewership numbers out of all the ACC schools Big 12 could get. Was it you, Immaculate, that sort of broke down Louisville a little bit with their viewing numbers and stuff? I know that one of our recent episodes, somebody spoke positively about
I've spoke about Syracuse. They seem to not get taken too seriously as an ad. I don't necessarily look at I don't have the viewership numbers in front of me, but one thing that is kind of known is that Syracuse is heavily populating the halls of ESPN. So for a conference that is definitely wanting to court as much money from ESPN as possible, taking that Syracuse might be a good idea.
Before I get to this super chat, I want to pass on some not so fun news. Our Minnesota guy from Minnesota is not going to be able to make it tonight. He did tell me that he was going to try to work, but as we all know, his family is his number one concern, and he takes care of his parents and other things. And so, in all due respect, I really appreciate him even trying to get on the show. And if you came hoping that he would be here, I'm sorry, I obviously can't I can't dial the phone for him. So I just want to make sure I'm open and honest with everybody so they know that we are trying to do those things, and bumps sometimes don't work. Sometimes people run into issues. So it's just an honest scheduling thing. Kenneth Maynor, I think I saw you the other day, Kenneth. Great to see you in the house. He says a super chat here for $4.99. ACC will attempt to backfill to survive, lose FSU, and get USF. New stadium, stay in Florida. Lose UNC, get ECU. That is not even close to a trade. You could argue the USF. I think some people have argued USF's potential, but ECU is not. Yeah, it's like that's just not.
This was a PAX plan to survive after. This was a PAX plan to survive a little less than or a little more than a week ago.
There's a little something to it. I mean, if you got to do what you got to do when you're in the moment, and if that, and what they do have on the east side versus the west side is more viewership, more people. So that plan might work a little bit better on the east and the west. But yeah, I mean, I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Very fair. Thank you again, Kenneth, for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Mr. Monkey says Summit. He's replying to Summit Hawk. I think 19. We're talking about the 19th and 20th teams to the Big 12 will be either UConn or Syracuse, and number 20 will be Miami, Duke, or Georgia Tech. So, Moen, what do you say to Miami?
It won't be Miami. I'm sorry. Miami's going to end up in the SEC or the Big Ten. It's just too big of a brand, too big of a media market. They're going to be willing to pay for that. Fox would be willing to pay for Miami.
Yep.
Duke, Georgia Tech, possibilities.
But Georgia Tech's an outside, though, right?
Georgia Tech's an outside. The Big Ten, you never know.
Right.
They're a candidate till they're not.
Very good. Did you want to say anything else, Immaculate? Sorry, I mean.
Yeah, I pretty much all the same on that.
Okay.
I actually do have Syracuse over UConn just because of football reasons and also because it helps out with the ACC situation. Miami, I get why Big 12 people want them, and if they're there, you absolutely take them. I just don't think they're going to be there and available.
If you want an outside shot at a school, I think USF, if they continue to do the explosive growth that they've shown, that could be the other anchor in Florida.
I really definitely think you want to get USF.
Do you think
hopefully they come along and you pair them up with UCF? That's a good rivalry to have for your conference, and that's 2 trips to Florida instead of 1.
What do you think?
UCF doesn't try and block it?
They may, but I think anymore in the Big 12, there's not anybody that's strong enough that could block something like that.
Okay.
Especially since they're a recent ad. I don't think they'd have any amount of power to be able to do anything like that.
Maybe if they were in a conference that was a little bit closer to them. But I think that while you might be like, we don't really want to help them out at the same time, we could use someone nearby to have as a real good rival. Get the crowd into it, get students into it, get fans into it. So I don't think that they would block it.
I'm warming up to USF a little bit.
They're definitely trying.
I would put Tulane in that category before I would USF, simply because it gets you into a new market for the Big 12.
Right.
And it's a close rival.
But what's the population difference, right? 30 million to 3?
Still, you've got New Orleans. It gets you into a new market.
Maybe.
You get some
I get what you're saying.
ground.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I think there's make arguments.
USF is just a duplication of UCF, I think.
Right.
Call me crazy, though. I'd almost rather take the University of Louisiana. I know everyone talks Tulane. I don't mean to bad.
La Tech?
But no, not La Tech. University of Louisiana at Lafayette, which is now University of Louisiana.
Okay.
I mean, they're the Raging Cajuns, and they're in a lot of good sports. It's a larger university than Tulane by a considerable amount. It's become Louisiana is trying to make it their second university after LSU. It's a real nice campus. I like it there. I was in Lafayette for a little while. It's just right down the road from Houston, basically. And it's an actual state university, whereas Tulane is a small, elite private university that does do well. But if you're looking, I mean, for growth, for future growth, I think Louisiana actually has more to it. I know I can see Charles talking about it. I get it. I knew he wasn't going to like the idea, but
well, the demographics just don't support it. Florida is a bigger market.
Oh,
and
I'm not saying
handle
over
5
USF.
Schools, right?
I still say USF first, but I'm just saying if it comes down to a Louisiana school,
maybe as a 25.
Yeah.
That's
near the end of your your pickups. Yeah.
Okay. Joey Zay, thanks for being here. Or Z, thanks for being here. What's the latest on Notre Dame media deal? We went through it about a half hour ago. I would just encourage you to rewind and watch the show a little bit earlier. There's a lot of data there. There is news out there, but nothing that's breaking, right? Mostly we'll just let you know. Go ahead.
There's nothing breaking on their deal with NBC.
Yeah.
They want $75 million, and NBC's not going to pay that. So,
I think if they can get 60, that's 10 million a game, or less. I think that's all they're going to get, but could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Dabo Sweeney says, "I hope FSU leaves for the big. I will help them pack." So.
well,
Yeah, I know that there's been a lot of people from Clemson that would like that to happen.
Well, if we believe that article from earlier, they're moving as a package. So I guess you're going to help them pack, and then they'll help you pack.
It's still hard to think Clemson in the Big Ten. Like, if that day comes, I'm just going to be sitting there going, what is going on?
Well, but it could happen. It absolutely could happen.
If the networks push it, then I could see it happening. If
yeah.
Fox, NBC, and CBS want them some Clemson in that conference, then it's probably going to happen.
Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Here's one from Kenneth Maynor. He says, if the SEC goes to 10 conference games, it will be harder to schedule rivals, so it makes sense to add them to the conference. The reason they're at 8 right now in the SEC is because they want to play the least amount of games that they're bound and tied to ESPN. If they do, 8 games in conference and then have up to 4 games out of conference, those are all money games. So they want control of their own schedule, and that's why they want to do that. They also want 8 home games. So it's not like Alabama doesn't already have built-in advantages. So I don't think they get to 10 games unless they go to Amazon or Apple and try to sell, what is that? 2 times 60, a 32-game package. I don't know.
I have 10 going when we get to 25 and when we have the conference playoffs and you have a whole lot more money coming in. And they'll use going to 10 in order to get the next round of expansion paid for by the networks.
I agree with that. I won't even say it. Anyway, Rebecca's here tonight. Great to see you, Rebecca. She says, oh, dang, Mafia pulling in coaches now. I think that's funny. Let's see here. I'm going to try to get down to some of these others here. Summit is a subscriber. There are 2 JTs, James Taylor and Justin Timberlake. Both are fantastic. It was Memphis that Justin Timberlake is into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that it took me a second, but I finally remembered that. Anyway. Encyclopedia, I've never seen you hear it before. Good to see you. The ACC effed up when they let Notre Dame take advantage of them, and again when they let the ESPN get a bargain. Comments?
Yeah, the ACC had poor leadership just like the Pac did. I mean, it's about leadership. You've got to put strong leaders in positions to lead. That was a terrible deal they did with ESPN. I don't know how he got away with that Raycom stuff that they did with Raycom,
right?
That his son was involved with. That is beyond me how that was even legally allowed. But there you go. I mean, if you put poor people in leadership positions, the saying in Ohio, I'm sure it's everywhere else, shit rolls downhill. So
I'm sure it is everywhere else. Immaculate.
I think it's one of those situations where sometimes you have to make a deal that you don't really want to make.
Right.
ACC, they've always, people don't want to hear that, but they've always kind of had an uphill battle between, you're between 2 giants, Big Ten and the SEC. You're trying to play in two different cultures, so to speak, the South Coast and then the North Coast.
They did the schizophrenic thing. They wanted to be the basketball and football conference.
Yeah. And then they wouldn't go forward with it fully. They took from the Big East and then they didn't do what the Big East did. So they only kind of went halfway in that.
Very fair.
But I think that, they use Notre Dame in order to get everyone to agree to what was given up to get the ACC network. It's just
agreed.
Just a business deal.
Everything's a trade. We've got 182 people in here. It's a fantastic number. Really appreciate everybody that's come and stayed. And then all the new people, please subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment or suggestion. Give us a thumbs up. I'm not like some other shows. I'm not watching the thumbs ups. So I actually don't know how many people actually do it, but I know it helps some computer at Google. So if you do that, that'd be great. And then a small announcement. Tomorrow, we've got Bob Thompson on here. The retired Fox Sports president is going to be on my show, and we're going to be asking some critical questions. Hopefully we can cover ground that hasn't really been dug up. We're really putting some time and energy into coming up with really good and insightful questions to ask. So I would encourage everybody to be here tomorrow night. That's at 8:30 Eastern.
That's
and
interesting.
it's going to be a great thing. And I hope we get 300 or 400 people in here watching, because when he talks,
Nate,
everybody should listen.
Can you pull up Pete Thamel's Twitter account real quick?
Of course. Yeah.
I just see in the chat here, Jared Jones just posted something that's
Scary.
very interesting.
Okay. Let's take a
goes
look.
along what we've been talking about.
Okay. And it's just a new post.
Yeah, I just tried looking and it didn't pop up.
3
in my feed
minutes.
yet.
This one. I'll show. Here we go. Says sources say ACC presidents met tonight, and the pursuit of Stanford and Cal for conference membership has hit significant roadblocks. There'd always be long odds because there wasn't ever a significant value add.
Wow. I think I feel worse for SMU. I mean, look at all that they've done to try to. They tried it with the PAC, they try with the ACC, and this is what they get every time. Maybe they know that, and that's why they're like, "Hey, we'll spend $1 billion to get in your conference," and they know that's never going to happen.
They have nothing to lose at that point. Here's a super chat from Summit Hawk, again, one of our subscribers, but he wants his comment read for sure, and that's a great way to do it. Super chat, he says, if ACC implodes, what schools get left out in the cold like the Pac-4? We've had this conversation several times.
This is a big one.
Top of my mind immediately is Wake Forest, Boston College, and I actually think Syracuse.
This is when I get into my big old legal conspiracy thing going on up there with the IVs and everything. So if it implodes, I think that you could see the ACC or the leftovers of it used as something else. But which one's getting left out? Maybe Boston College. I would probably put them in this. Wake Forest seems like, unfortunately, because of their location, there's so many other value adds in that area that they might get left behind. Although I really like them for the Big 12. I mean, they're small, but those guys in basketball and football, they really put it out there. So I think if you want an across the board competitive conference in the Big 12, and if you got a spot for them, I would think about it. But it's mostly going to be the small privates. Georgia Tech, maybe.
Oh, I don't think Georgia Tech left out.
I mean, who's going to take them?
The Big 12 would take them. It's the Georgia market.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm not smarter or anything.
No, it's not bad. It's just, if there is a private university type thing that builds up there, I kind of think Georgia Tech might stay with that.
Interesting. What do you think, Mullen?
Wake Forest and Boston College would be your top two. I don't see Syracuse getting left behind by the Big 12. I don't. I think Brett Yormark has made it known he wants the Northeast Corridor.
And
Syracuse
basketball.
and UConn. Yep.
Right.
Syracuse
biggest basketball stadium in the A4, basically.
Yeah.
If you're not a frequent viewer of our shows, you can go back and go to the Big 12 Mafia page. In fact, I wanted to bring that back up so everybody knew what I was referring to when I referred to the page itself. First of all, I want to recognize. Oops, wrong thing. I want to recognize. Why is that not? It's not working all of a sudden. Well, that won't work. Let me try it one more time. Share screen, entire screen. Let's try it now. What the heck is going on? There we go. So let me get this comment off here. If you're new to the channel, you can subscribe, obviously. That's totally free. If you want to join, you can hit this join button, and there's a few tiers that you can join in. They all have different things. I have an inside chat that I've created for as much inside information as I can share, I put in there. And then this founder membership and probably the contributor as well. I'm going to be buying either some rally towels or something to be getting and sending out to those subscribers. So if you're interested in doing that rather than super chats, you're welcome to. Now, what was the thing we were just talking about? I just lost my train of thought with why would I want to show the screen? What was I going to show?
It was the last got a super chat up.
Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. This one?
There we go. Yep.
All right.
Did
And
we
what was
just
I
kind
going to
of
show?
finish?
We just covered this.
I know. That's why I'm asking. Why did I go to the screen?
I have no idea, Nate.
Okay.
I'm not a psychic either.
You were showing
Hey.
us your the
My
donations
desktop.
and the
Yeah.
subscriptions and
I
all that.
appreciate
So
that. All right. Sorry. I actually don't know why I just did that. I apologize. Let's see here.
it's been a day.
It has been a day. Let's see. 100% Syracuse over UConn. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Rebecca says, are we talking about the Godfather, aka the fat guy from Minnesota? Yes. Yep, that's who was supposed to. Well, not supposed to. He said he might be able to make it. I want to be very clear. He never confirmed that it was permanent. So, let's see here. Mike Smith says the thought about calling Greg Minnesota Fats, but I don't think he wants to take the famous pool player's name. Seriously though, Greg is the best. I tip my hat to him. All of us here on this show do that. Let's see here. This FSU fan would love to see Miami in the Big 12. Encyclopedia says that would be awesome. So I don't know.
Not surprising.
Summit Hawk says if we go basketball schools with the decent football, we take Syracuse, Louisville, Duke, and Pitt. Georgia Tech, if it's available, I think is an auto
Definitely
ad.
a really good basketball ad.
Yeah. Let's see here. Note from Devil Frog, the 3 service academies, BYU, TCU, and Notre Dame, have the most secondary fans in the country. Yeah, I mean,
What are secondary fans?
I don't know. But they're not service academies, though, Frog.
No, I think he's saying the service academies plus those.
Oh,
three.
plus them have the most secondary fans? Yeah, possibly. Stanford technically is a private school.
I think maybe he's saying like cultural connection, like people care about the service academies because of the
Oh, okay,
military,
yeah.
and then people of faith care about the other ones just by connection of faith.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's see here. Mike Smith says mostly officers that watch the military teams. Most others in the military ever watched the games in my experience, and I was at multiple forts. I think the military is pretty good about supporting their different games. I mean, their teams. I think so.
Actually, I think he's right because we're talking about the academies and all the officers went through those. But
Right.
enlisted, they're probably carrying their favorites from previously, whatever colleges they would have followed or whatnot. But the officers are the ones that go to those academies.
Okay, here's somebody calling you out, Immaculate. G. Bruce says Big 10 snob telling Big 12 to pick up University
Hey,
of Louisiana.
I
Lafayette.
lived in Lafayette. I can say it.
I think that's.
I like
I was
it. I
thinking the
actually
same
like the
thing,
Raging
just so you
Cajuns.
know.
And their basketball, their baseball is top notch. So for folks who I know that's not a money sport, but they are quite big in a few. And if you actually gave them the money of a A3, they would take off.
I think you could say about that any school though.
Yeah, but that's dead center in Louisiana. All the highways.
It's the
come straight through there.
demographics. I just don't see it. Not enough
Well, we're talking
population.
about recruits locally in Louisiana. Louisiana kids like Louisiana. That's why LSU keeps them all. So
All
if you put Louisiana up in that rank to where they can say they're up there, and you
I
can
get
probably
what
say
you're
the
saying.
same for La Tech or ULL or any of the ones up there, but ULL is like centered, whereas Monroe and La Tech are up north.
Okay. Immaculate. Mr. Monkey says, Immaculate, are you surprised by Clemson to the Big Ten because of the academics? Didn't Oregon reset that expectation?
He's not
Oregon
wrong.
broke all expectations.
He's not wrong, and Oregon, for the same reason, the networks wanted them. So that's why I say, for that argument, I can see Clemson doing it. But yeah, it's still kind of hard to fathom that could happen.
Dabo Sweeney's back. He says, sadly, the Clemson flagship station here is pushing the idea of us to the Big Ten, which would never happen unless the Clemson University higher-ups wanted to push it.
Well, they probably would want to push it. They'd want to be
Yeah.
associated with Big Ten for academics. I mean,
That is
say
kind
what
of
you
what
will
we've
about
been
the
hearing.
Big Ten, yeah, athletics, but jumping into
Yeah.
the Big Ten boosts you up on the academic rating. When Oregon gets into the Big Ten, it's going to help their research. So they're terrible in research right now, but they're going to be able to work their way up to awful.
Yeah.
That's great.
As Jared's even saying in chat, Oregon's AU, they are, but they've been that for a long time, and they've done nothing
They're a
since.
founder.
Yeah, they're
a founding member.
Yep.
Charles M's talking to Summit Hawk here. He says Duke, UVA, maybe Boston College, Virginia Tech, or Wake. But Wake posted very good numbers in 2022, and BC did okay. Duke was horrible. Duke is a much more in-demand brand than Boston College, Syracuse. You could argue maybe even Virginia Tech, to be honest.
You know, the only way I would start maybe lean BC is they'll get you the in-state rate in Massachusetts with Boston. If you're running a network, there's been some talk about maybe the Big 12 can find a way to get a hold of the PAC network and use it for themselves, or the ACC network in the future. Otherwise, yeah, it's a stretch.
Derek Roche, one of my Utah followers or viewers. Thanks for being here, Derek. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch our show. When are the P4 bottom feeders going to get kicked out? We're talking about that relegation thing that came up late last night.
Never.
None of us believe that's going to happen.
These aren't.
Derek.
These aren't football.
You have to have losers.
Yeah, and these aren't like NFL football team organizations. These are universities first and foremost, and they have, especially in a conference like the Big Ten, and that's usually what comes up when people are talking about this. Those schools are very closely tied. The ones that you would think that should get voted out, they're not going to vote each other out, because then they're just one vote closer to getting voted out themselves. So it's the relegation that we're seeing happen is like Oregon State and Washington State, and maybe if they go to the AAC, which is something to talk about someday, then they can play their way.
But strictly speaking, though, they're not being relegated. They're just being left behind.
No, right.
There is a difference.
Yes, absolutely. It's not technical relegation. It's just kind of unfortunate, consolidation.
Let's see here. Nick's got another comment. Great comments tonight, guys. We're all three of us are reading them, and we're communicating about the ones we might want to bring up. But this is in reply to Daryl MVP. Although I was just kidding about going to 6 games, the SEC reluctance to go to 9 conference games, like the Big 12 and Big 10, comes off as a little cowardly. I don't think anybody here is disagreeing with that.
Nick's unfortunately making me support the real MVP here and defend him. The SEC is just plain business. They're not going to go to 9 without getting something for it.
Right.
They're going to use it for 2 to 4 teams expansion, and then they're going to use 10 for the same thing.
Absolutely. Rekka again says, great show. Mo and Vision, always keeping it real. Guy's the guy. That's why he's here. So is Immaculate. Let's see. Really good. Sergeant Pickles is in the house. Good to see you, Sergeant Pickles. He's a subscriber. He says Boston College and Wake Forest. We were talking about those, and in my mind, those are the two for sure that would get left behind.
Most likely.
We'll have to see. It also depends what the access looks like for the remaining conferences too. That might dictate.
Right. I mean, Wake has an outside chance at the Big 12. I mean, if you're trying to get into that market, the North Carolina market, North Carolina State, North Carolina are taken. Maybe the Big 12 makes that reach and grabs Wake.
It'd be a nice little add to a local division down there. If you have USF, UCF, Wake, and one
Georgia
more
Tech.
Or whatever. Yep, Georgia Tech or whoever you get. Georgia State.
Georgia State. What's his name from
You
USC
Big Ten
went there?
snob.
Hey,
Anyway.
they got a nice stadium and it's at Atlanta. I mean, it's a location.
Sky, welcome to the house. Good to see you tonight. I used to think Georgia Tech was a wild card for the Big for Atlanta, but if the Big turns away Stanford and Cal, which it sounds like that absolutely could happen, they would like to turn away Georgia Tech unless they want that Georgia recruiting. And I know Georgia Tech is one that's been on Mo and Vision's 24 team plan and potentially going to the Big Ten. They do a lot of research, very high academic standards. Do you want to add anything to that, Mo?
Huge market. Atlanta's a huge television market. The Big Ten network isn't in right now. So it gets you onto cable boxes on the basic package. You get the local carriage fees, makes you money. And they have a natural rival in Purdue. Let's get that train wreck bowl going.
Just one thing on that. One thing, Georgia Tech, you don't get in unless you're willing to go away from the wishbone, whatever the offense is they run. Like, stop making coaches agree
triple
to play
option.
that. Yeah,
I love the triple option.
I mean, that's
so
fine.
do I.
It's fine, but
it's so fun.
It's too predict. Like, everyone knows what you're going to do, and if you're like, we're not going to hire you as a coach unless you do this. It's so
when
backwards.
you recruit 1,600 SAT guys, you're going to get a lot of wishbone. I'm just saying.
Come on, we can engineer something better, though, right?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe somebody, a social network person, will redesign what offenses should look like. We'll see. Charles says, and he's picking his teams for the outside or the in line for the Big 12 if the ACC blows up. Syracuse, Pitt, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, or Georgia Tech or Miami. I think Pitt is number 1. Virginia Tech would be number 2. And Louisville would be, Miami's number 1. But I think Georgia Tech would be 4 if those were all available.
Well, he's saying realistic.
I know.
Realistic?
I'm switching them around in my head. I'm in charge of my own thing.
That's actually a pretty good list for realistic. Yep.
OP is giving me credit. Bomber as a comedian without even trying to. I'm the best, Jerry. The best. Come here for Seinfeldism. That's where you're at. Mike says chewing gum hard is screwing up your computer skills. That's probably true. It's one way I deal with stress. Let's see here. BYU and Notre Dame are like the Atlanta Braves. When you're on TV a lot, you gather random fans. That's absolutely true. Yep. That's absolutely true. Our Web here with another super chat. Thank you, Our Web. I appreciate it. He says, guys, Wake is the smallest A5 school, so no.
They are pretty tiny.
Yeah, they are pretty tiny. That's true. Let's see here. Here's a good one about the service academies. Summit Hawks, one of our subscribers. Thanks, Summit. Would any conference add Army, Navy, Air Force to the rivalries and worldwide fans?
Yes.
I say no, but it would be neat.
I'd say either the AAC needs to do it or this other private university conference thing that I have in mind. I would definitely put them in there. They are well-respected academies and educational institutions. So I say if you're going to go with one, you go with all 3 and you get that in there. And you have that extra week at the end of the conference and of the season, and that becomes a conference game that you can sell on your lineup for any network. So I would say yes.
Yeah, that first week in December, they kind of own that, with their inner rivalry games, and that's Army Navy is fantastic. Let's see here. Sky says academically, Stanford and Cal are the most big light schools of anyone out there. Crazy how realignment throws things like that out the window. Realignment, conference affiliation anymore. It has become about exposure. It's become about engagement. It's come about market and rivalries. And unfortunately, the Cal-Stanford rivalry is not high on that list. It is to them, but not to pretty much anyone else. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, you guys, there's so many good comments. Without these super chats, I would have had it almost impossible to pick which ones to bring up. Obviously, the subscriber ones stand out, but man, these are awesome comments tonight. Devil Frog says Oregon State has no business being relegated, left behind. Finished the season ranked, started the season ranked, and has a great baseball program. Their baseball program is elite, actually. It's not by choice. And
I don't
you can't.
disagree.
I don't think the Big 12 can be blamed for not taking them, right? They're not running a charity. It's a numbers game. There's only so many that the broadcasters will pay for. It's just they ran out of revenue. There's not enough money. They need big promoters like SMU does.
I think that Oregon State probably needs to prepare themselves to go down to like the AAC, where they will dominate.
I like that
make
idea
their
too.
way into the playoffs,
Yep.
and be seen and be heard, and then you get up into the Big 12 with the next phase, because they do not deserve. They've just built up their stadium. They've got a great football team. They got a great sports athletic department. They're just kind of a victim of their location.
Agreed. If you're new to the channel, we're still holding our average right now. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, a comment, and you know how super chats work. Everybody here is smart enough to figure that out. But most importantly, I want everybody to know I really appreciate you being here. And an announcement if you missed it, we're going to have Bob Thompson on the show tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern. And it's going to be fantastic. BR's finally in the house. I was expecting him earlier. He's one of our subscribers. He says, I saw one report, not sure from who, that ACC and Big 12 were discussing scheduling alliance. Oh, I hate that word. Has anyone else heard that? I hate the word alliance.
Yeah, it's almost like expect to have a knife in your back if you agree to an alliance.
Right. And whenever you see those declarations of solidarity, like the Mountain West put out today, you know you're in real trouble. Did you guys see that? Did you guys come across that?
Yeah, the
statement of unity. It's the unity statement.
Someone even said that when I was on Twitter looking around. It was like, that's 100%. Like, they're putting out the front the double speak. So, you know, after the whole SDSU thing, yeah,
right.
I think that they're going to have some people knocking there pretty soon.
Oh, Summon Hawk just reminded me. He's sending me a KU helmet, and I told him I'd wear that. So that'll be fun. I think it's one of the small ones, so I can't wear a small one. But I'm going to make it pronounced. I'm going to get in fact, I don't know where it's at. It should have arrived. I'm going to get a little stand that goes over on this side, and that's just going to have like the promotion or the newest item on it for a while. So I'm really excited for that helmet, Summit. Believe me. Let's see here. Nick M says, Opie Don, ESPN wanted 50% of the Pac-12 network. And this was in 2016 or 2018. Anyway, and the Pac foolishly did not go that route. I think the Big 12 would absolutely jump on it, built-in production and distribution. That is something. Look, there's still 4 teams. They have value. If you can incorporate all the money that's still at the Pac-12 that's being held back, that was all dues and stuff, something like $400 million, and you can get a network by bringing in 4 schools. I know it blows all our numbers out of the way, and I know it blows all our guesses, but why aren't they just can't settle in and do that?
They could just wait for Stanford and Cal to get out, and then you just bring in 2 schools.
Maybe that's the game. That's a great point. Yeah. What do you think about that, Moen?
Yeah, I mean, this was the main downfall of Larry Scott. If you have a partner in a network, you have somebody who is invested in your long-term success and viability.
Right.
That's why the SEC is thriving. That's why the Big Ten was thriving. They got their networks first, and they have partners that are committed who want to see them succeed and not fail. But once the Pac went their own way, that was a death sentence for them. That just became an albatross around their neck.
Right.
So much money went into it. They couldn't get enough clearances. I still think there's areas of the Pac-12 that Pac-12 schools are in that you can't get the Pac-12 network.
There are. They know.
Yeah,
that.
how ridiculous is that? I mean,
there's definitely.
Yeah, their best bet is just wholesale, sell everything, get what they can off of it.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree. Opie says Georgia Tech has said they will not run the option starting this year. So there you go.
I answered them in Chatham on that one. That's really good news for them, because if they don't, they could reach their potential and, you know, give them a decade or something, Georgia Tech could be something.
Right. Absolutely. Summit is just following up on some comments about sending me stuff. The KU helmet and background will be epic looking. Let's go. And I got to tell you, like I said, I am absolutely so excited about this. And I hope other people start to do it because it's a lot of fun. It's a tip of the hat to Golden Blue Dude, who we all miss. And it's my homage to him. So, obviously, you don't have to send anything, but if you do have stuff kicking around that you don't mind just putting in a box and shipping to me for a couple bucks, I would absolutely take it and put it up. Let's see here. There was another. Oh, here we go. Sergeant Pickles says, who's a subscriber, by the way, if ACC could swallow some pride, USF, Tulane, SMU, and Navy braces against future losses. Thoughts?
Depends on what the losses are.
Well,
that doesn't brace against losing Florida State or Clemson.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like I said, I do like the Tulane SMU thing for the future private university one, but I mean, it's not replacing losses. It's just going in a different direction.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think USF is, if that happens, USF is going Big 12. Like they're not going in that direction.
Let's see here. There's another comment from Sergeant Pickles. I know there are legal reasons, but I'm still a fan of a Super G5 with the best 16 from the assorted teams. I think that team I think you could do a 20 across the country.
I just think the AAC already has a deal with ESPN. It has a clause in there. If their value rises enough, it can be renegotiated. I just say, why do it difficult? Why try to get a brand new deal when you could just go into the AAC, get it renegotiated, and boom, there you go. Just take the best Mountain West schools that you want to take, because the Mountain West schools are just the best schools that left the WAC. So you just do it again, and you run with that, and that's your next gateway conference.
Here is a comment.
Oh, yeah. We're having a little chat.
This is you guys going back and forth about
Yeah.
People relocating to Phoenix.
People are asking me who, as a rival of Iowa, I would like to bring in, like a new rivalry. And I said Kansas. I figured I'd get a little hate because a lot of the Kansas guys, they really want to see Kansas stay in the Big 12. And I get it. I do. But, I mean, if you're going to ask me, I'm going to say it. I think Kansas and Iowa have a lot in common.
So I'm working on getting a press pass, believe it or not. And I know that sounds crazy, but there is a possibility I might be able to get access to one for the Big 12. If I get one, I'm going to take Summit Hawk up on this deal because I actually have a really good friend that lives in Phoenix that I could stay with. I'd love to go there and watch KU play ASU. If I can do it for only paying really for a flight, I absolutely would do that. So
I live in Scottsdale, so if you come up here, I can pick you up from the airport.
Well, there you go. That's even better. I like stuff that's free, but I would love to do that. If you're going to do that road trip, don't forget about this. Get back to me. Let me know. And yeah, we would do that. That sounds fun. Let's see here. Boy, so many good comments tonight.
I'm laughing at Tony. You'll see it.
Well, that's okay. Here's a good question from Nathan Necht, who's been watching the show recently. I appreciate it, Nathan. Honestly, if the Big Ten and SEC expand, which teams definitely add value at this point?
Now we're
Florida
getting
State,
into it. Florida
Notre
State,
Dame.
Notre Dame,
Clemson,
Miami,
North Carolina.
North Carolina to a degree. I think Virginia Tech's a tough one because I think having one definitely does. Like, I love Virginia Tech. I want to put them with Tennessee and Kentucky and have this great northern division of the SEC, and I call it northern with, quotes. Just because having their own division would be good. They've always kind of gotten screwed in the two-division system of the SEC. So I like them for that. And Virginia, I think if you put them in one of those, eventually they could maybe put together a team. But
what do you think, Moen?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about just adding cash value, there's only two. Florida State and Notre Dame are the only ones that would be actually accreditive and actual monetary value.
Right.
Looking at the intangible values like marketplace, Miami, obviously. Georgia Tech offers you the Atlanta market, although people disagree with me on that. North Carolina's demographics are shifting to very wealthy transplants from the Midwest. So, obviously, if you want to get eyeballs, your advertisers want to target those eyeballs. You want to get a market in North Carolina. A lot of people don't understand the UVA thing. The UVA thing is a very political-based thing. A lot of political money flows into Washington, D.C. through the University of Virginia. So that's why both the Big Ten and the SEC have looked at them
as an Maryland expansion
target.
Too.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
Maryland, Virginia, they're kind of that same way. Like if you look at Maryland getting picked up, there's a lot of, how you might say, agency research that goes through there.
I would think a little bit, yeah.
It comes from the federal government, and Virginia's right in that too.
Summit Hawk says, Bomber, me too. So he must have friends in Phoenix as well. So we could have a little party there, Immaculate. Maybe we'll have to look into that. Phoenix, I think Kansas is going to be a great team this year.
7 months of the year, Phoenix is a great place. Just now, I just
don't want to be there until it's November.
Dude, it is so brutal this year. This is the worst.
Just to wrap up on that ACC stuff, and this is from Ross Dillinger. Thank you, Devil Frog. Appreciate it. He says the ACC presidents explored expansion and again put off a vote. Disagreement exists among the group. At least 4 schools are pushing back. League needs 12 votes of 15 members. That's a pretty high percentage. Is that?
Well, that's interesting. At least 4 schools are pushing back.
Yeah.
At least 4. So it could be more than 4. But I can guarantee you Florida State's one of the 4. Mm-hmm. And Clemson's probably one of the 4. And Miami's one of the 4.
Yeah, they don't want to be watered down.
UNC is the other 4.
We've been saying, don't take these public statements by some of these administrators at their face value. When you see UNC and Miami saying, this is not the right thing for Florida State to do, what they're really saying is, go Florida State, go.
Right.
Like that's what they're really saying in doublespeak is, oh, yeah, we don't believe in this. But they're coming out and talking about it. You don't notice anyone else talking about it. That's the key point.
Kyle A gives us a super chat of $2. Thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate it. And he says Tulane is AAU and helps academics for whatever conference they're in. That's true. But I think through this whole process, if you guys have looked at realignment for the last year, we started off talking about what? Research, AAU, and academics were driving realignment. Does everybody remember those days? They're burned into the back of my skull because the Big 12 was beat down, and by extension, BYU was beat down to how they're not research heavy. They're basically unintelligent rubes that can only drive trucks for an entire year. And then 2 weeks ago, Friday, Colorado comes out and blows the whole thing up, knowing what we'd already sniffed out months before, done shows on before, that while those are important milestones and markers for a president, right now, it's exposure, rivalries, your fan engagement, and your media markets. Nowhere in there does it say AAU. Nowhere in there does it say research.
It definitely depends on your conference.
Maybe. I still think that it's sort of irrelevant.
It's not an absolute. We know it's not an absolute for any conference.
It's a guiding light. That's how I would put it. It's a guiding light. It's a pole star to focus on, to keep everybody moving in the same direction, but it's simply not required.
Right. The most important thing is your media partner ponying up the money. Mm-hmm. Fox is paying for Washington and Oregon for the next 6 years. The presidents wanted Washington. Fox wanted Oregon. That's the compromise. Right. Oregon got into the Big Ten because the Big Ten presidents wanted Washington and Fox Sports wanted Oregon, and there was a compromise. Fox carried the water for both of them to get Oregon into the Big Ten.
Kyle A is $2. He says eventually there will be 30-team conferences. Maybe. That's really not what we think around here. If you're new to the channel, we say it all the time. We really think it's going to be an A4 for a short bit of time, but then eventually you're going to end up with 3 super conferences. The only question is what the composition of those conferences is. We do not believe there are 30 teams. The most number that we've shared as a team is 75. So that would be 3 teams of 25 broken into 5 subgroups for scheduling and travel and other things. And then roll up tournaments to qualify for the NCAAs and football. So go ahead. You guys can add anything you want to that.
I'll just say real quick, I would always be open to any type of number, any type of scenario that someone wants to present. I would just want to see, okay, what is your method of monetization? Like for me to get to 25, I'm always saying conference playoffs, the new divisions, and all the money that comes straight to the conferences for that. And that's the eventual drive from 20 to 25. I know Moen's got some for his 20 to 24. So if anyone wants to take it another step further and go to 30, I would just have to see how they think that's going to get funded, because we're already going to be at 10-team schedules, so there's really no more room for using that. So right. I would just be curious to see how we would possibly get there.
You want to add anything to that, Moen?
30. It seems to be too.
It's
24 is going to be it's going to be unwieldy at 24. But I think we can get there through bureaucracy. I don't think we can get to 30. Just my opinion, though.
Yeah, no, anyway. So that's when you're around here, we talk about this stuff. That's what these shows are about. And we appreciate you being here, because we certainly are not talking down to anybody, because most people watching these shows are smarter than we are. But we like to share those ideas. We kind of think there's some value there. So I appreciate you asking those questions. Nathan next says, if the Big 12 goes to 20, the likely pickups are Louisville, Pitt, USF, and Georgia Tech. That's assuming Virginia Tech and North Carolina State are not available. Otherwise, you take GT and USF spots.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Seems reasonable.
Jason Spangler, great to see you, Jason. He says there are too many good college-age players to only have 48 teams between 2 conferences. We all agree with that. We absolutely agree with that. Summit Hawk again, a subscriber. He says if the Big 2 from the ACC move, and that would be Clemson and Florida State, I'm going to guess, and schools get scared, networks will come up with money for ads, whether that's adding a streamer, Apple or Amazon, or hedging for a playoff with 3 big conferences.
Yeah, they'll find a partner.
Money is everywhere for the playoff.
It's the money. That's what moves everything, is the money.
Right. Sergeant Pickles, again, a subscriber, but also turning into a good friend, and he's a supporter of the show. He has a super chat here. He says, nice Jersey Bomber, now just waiting for UW Boise. That's going to be a good game. Is that in Boise? Because they can win in Boise, Pickles. But yeah, I can't wait for it. And if you don't know, everybody, this is a Cam Chancellor jersey. Got for Christmas last year, actually, from my kids. Cam Chancellor, one of the best Seahawks ever. And I'm repping that. And Richland High School, Richland Bombers, my alma mater in high school. That's why I'm wearing my hat. So I kind of felt Washington-esque tonight. Anyway, and I can do that because it's my show.
Absolutely.
Devil Frog says Fox and the Big didn't know Eugene, Oregon's airport couldn't land a 737 until after their membership was approved. That is hilarious. If that's true, that is funny.
We might need to take the team out there with 2 planes.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. You know they're going to get the biggest charter they can in there. If it's not a 737, maybe they'll do like an Airbus or something. I don't know, but I think that's funny. Derek again says the most important thing is money at the end of the day. I think we disagree about that, Derek, but I appreciate your point, which is why I don't understand how they don't eventually relegate the bottom schools who are subsidized by the top. And again, it was Derek that asked the relegation question before.
That's
Derek,
a pretty easy one.
Please send me a DM at B12 Mafia. I want to have a chat with you offline. I think you're bringing up some really good points that we can address in a future show. So please send me a DM and I'll have a conversation with you, and we'll see what we can do to try to flesh that out. I really appreciate it. As we're winding down here, I got like 5 minutes. I want to tell everybody, first of all, thanks for being here. If you're come in late, please know that I appreciate it. Subscribe, do all the fun stuff you're supposed to do. And then know that tomorrow we're going to be interviewing Bob Thompson, the retired Fox Sports Network president. And we're going to ask some fantastic questions. He's the god of all realignment. He knows everything there is to know. He wrote the original book, and he's still working on a book now. And if you miss it, it's on you. You can watch it recorded, but I don't think it'll be as exciting as when we do it tomorrow live. That's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Let's see here. Dan Wetzel. Jason gets a note about Dan Wetzel. Made a good point earlier today. Could you imagine a series organization like the NFL making a life-altering decision over Zoom at 1 a.m. like the Pac-12 teams did last week? That is a great question. Have you guys heard that question before? I think that's a great question.
No, but I would suggest you actually look at some of the stuff that went on in the early NFL.
Yeah. I mean,
there was some pretty,
But that's a
players.
long time ago, though, right? Early NFL is 50 years.
Well, true, but still, they made some really wacky decisions too. So
also, they don't have to run entire universities as well. They're just running a football team.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Jim Zorn says Tony Washington. Yes, I grew up with Jim Zorn. Thank you. He was my quarterback. Let's see here. Kyle A says 3 super conferences. Immaculate says go Hawks. I appreciate that.
Someone shouted out. I had to respond.
I hope you're talking about Seattle. It is go Hawks.
Well, yeah, sure.
Let's see. A few more as we check out of here. Sergeant Pickle says teams usually fly charter to Boeing Field in Seattle. I know that field. I've actually landed at it before. Instead of SeaTac, way closer to the campus and not too busy. Seattle is a beautiful town. Crime and stuff has affected it the last 6 or 7 years. But if you get a chance to go, it is absolutely one of the most beautiful cities in the country. Go Black 45, who's been on the show before. I appreciate you being here. He says 64 P5 schools. We're not doing P5 anymore around here. But I'm teasing. With their own playoff and G5 with their own people, we'll watch both. We'll watch both. All right. And is there any other? And Koo's Corner coming in here at the end. Koos, I tell you what, do you guys have another minute? Because I would love Koos to join us. Koos, take this link and join the show really quick, because I actually had a question for you. If you want to join, you don't have to, I guess. I kind of assumed you would want to join, but if you want to join the show, come in, because I actually had a question for you that I meant to put in a DM on Twitter, and I forgot. Hopefully, Koos didn't just come in and leave. We'll wait a second here, see if we can get that connection. Let's see. Summit Hawk says, Jason, now that Four Corners are here, we have Zona and Stronger Conference with lesser reason to leave. That's Brett Yormark's plan. He wants everybody to basically step up and raise the entire league so they can't be.
I think he's talking that Kansas perspective. Now they got a true rival in basketball.
That's true. Koos, let me see. Did you send a note? Oh, give me a sec, he says. Okay, we'll wait a minute. We've got a few more questions here. Summit Hawk says to Immaculate, $350 million update to Memorial Stadium and Rising. Whose stadium is that?
I think they're talking about Kansas. Kansas has been doing a lot.
Oh, okay. All right. I actually saw those plans on Twitter the other day. It's going to be a beautiful stadium when it's done.
So you got Big Ten Ted in here as well, if you didn't see him.
No, I didn't see him.
Yep,
where's he at? Oh, he is right there.
Well.
Hey, Big Ten Ted. You and I need to talk. I'd love to do some collaboration with you if you're interested at all. Send me a DM on Twitter and we'll connect.
You want someone that knows everything Big Ten. That guy's a guy.
I have heard that. That's why I wanted to talk to him. Although Moen knows everything. So 2 people would know the most. Seattle, Big Ten country. Facts. That's all I got to say. Facts. Make sure I did get all the super chats. So at this point, we're waiting for Koos just a second. I hope you guys are excited because Coos is almost as good as Greg Flugar. So,
Tony, I'm
brings
not
that-
worried about week 11.
That very important West Virginia perspective. He needs the link again, I think.
oh, does he? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I can put it in. Let's see here. Yeah, there you go. Mike Smith says he's got to put his clothes back on. You caught Coos naked. That's probably true. Let's see. Who's the week 11 game he's talking about?
The Golden Gophers.
Oh,
The Gophers.
very good.
Coming
awesome.
to Columbus. I mean, I'm not worried about the Gophers.
There he is.
Very good. How you doing, Coos? Good to see you.
What is up?
So you came here at the end. I was just getting ready to sign out, and I saw you pop up. I appreciate you. Can you hear us? Did we lose him?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah,
we
we
got
can
you.
hear you.
I had an echo for some reason because I had it on my phone.
Right. Okay. So, what do you think about this news that came out just tonight? Are you still getting it?
Yes, I'm hearing everything I say. I'm hearing twice.
It shouldn't be us. We haven't had any trouble all night.
Might be the YouTube if you mute that.
Yeah. Did you leave the YouTube page up? You have to mute it or stop it. I always close them because I do that all the time.
I just mute it because I'm watching chat over there.
Yeah, I'm not good at multitasking when I'm participating.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
It's fine on our end as long as you're not
Yeah.
hearing.
I
the,
think I'm
echo.
good.
Okay. So, did you hear this last notice that just came out about the ACC move being difficult for Stanford and Cal?
Yes, I
what are
did.
your thoughts on that?
Not really surprised. I mean, do you really think Florida State and Miami and North Carolina and Clemson are going to want to do that when they're getting ready to bail? I mean, I don't think they are, and I don't think the move was made any sense. I mean, I heard Billy and Bodie who covers SMU on Sikkim 365 today, and he thought it was going to happen because SMU was going to go in for basically, and SMU could still go, I guess. I don't guess
Right.
that deal's dead, but he was thinking that they were going to go in for free basically for 5 years, and Stanford and Cal were going to take such a small share that it would be like $6 or $9 million each for the other schools to
Right.
help close that gap. But I don't know that $9 million is enough when you're $35 million behind. I think
Yeah,
that's the problem.
And I think that's like the overriding idea is that you don't want to bring in new voting interests if you want to keep it as low as you can so you can have control.
Mhm.
And I think that probably makes most sense. Also, the travel just seemed crazy to us. We talked about it for 45 minutes, and I think the travel is probably one of the biggest concerns.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and even if they get that extra $9 million or whatever, that's barely enough to cover your travel expenses. Probably.
Right. Yeah.
So why do it? I had something else I was going to. Obviously, I'm on here. I actually did my own stream, so I wasn't able to catch yours. But did you guys cover the Clemson FSU stuff at all?
We talked about it, but I'm not sure we covered everything. What are you thinking? What's your thought?
Did you guys see the letter that came out that was posted from War Chant?
Yes, we
Yes.
did go through that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
found
did.
that very interesting.
I had a
Yeah. Go
question
ahead.
for Coos real quick. Just to give us the West Virginia perspective on all
Mhm.
this madness going on with the ACC right now. With
Mhm.
this thing's going on, and then we want these schools. Oh, there's not quite enough votes. Just kind of seeing the chaos of it. Does it take you back? Is it a little maddening, or does it give you a little bit of pleasure to sit back and watch this? Considering West Virginia's history with that.
Oh, it's a pleasure for sure.
Okay.
Only
That's kinda
because it's not that we're on the other side of it this time, and it's kind of nice.
Exactly.
And I'm not dancing on anyone's grave by any means, but it's
Yeah.
it's a sense. I just kind of enjoy the
You've
chaos.
earned a smile and a laugh
Yeah,
about it. I mean,
I kind of enjoy the chaos too. To be honest, it's kind of fun, and it's kind of like getting on there and talking about it. So
Well, it's fun not being part of it.
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's the
exactly.
best part.
hey, just seeing in chat, Illabuck, he's curious about the letter. Maybe we have some folks in chat now who weren't here for that. I don't know if you
I
want
can,
to pop
yeah,
it up there.
we've been on long enough. I can bring it up really quick. I wanted to go over this comment from Mike.
Okay,
He
gotcha.
says, the ASU AD did that mea culpa, called up and apologized, wrote a letter. And what was so funny, he goes, they caught me off guard. He said some stupid excuse. And then he said, and by the way, it was just a joke. Come on, dude. It's a straight lie what you're telling me right now.
He did at least admit it was what did he say? Not a poor use of words, but clumsy. He said it was a clumsy use of a joke or something like that. So I'll give him credit for at least doing that and admitting it.
I think he was going like weather, like he doesn't want to go up there, it's cold or whatever. But it was like you said, it was clumsy. It didn't come off that way.
And I was so shocked in the letter. He's been to West Virginia before, so
that's what he said.
Yeah.
Well, he's from up in that direction. Like, didn't he go to an Ivy League school anyway? So it's not like he's not familiar with.
He went to one of them. Yeah, he went to one. I don't remember which. Columbia? No, it wasn't Columbia. Maybe it was. I can't remember.
As someone living here in the valley as well, the idea of going up for like a cold, like winter game up there, doesn't really thrill me either.
I get that.
But as an AD of a school coming into the conference, you still say, I look forward to coming up there. It's going to be great. That camera's going to be looking for him wherever he's standing there.
Absolutely. Especially after
everyone's going to want to see his face.
Especially after your president just made national news for the way he handled the exit of the Pac-12,
Yeah.
Stupid. For some reason, this is not displaying. I don't know what's going on here. It worked a little while ago.
Play the letter.
Yeah, it's it shows that maybe it'll be there now. There we go. Okay. Let me make us out of here. Nobody wants to see us anyway. And let me build this up.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, this is for all the folks curious. This was actually a pretty big thing that came out of War Chant. Whether it's true or not, we're not quite sure, but it's an interesting read, that's for sure.
Dang it. My computer's all of a sudden not behaving. See, guys, I'm sorry. We can just review it. You can read it if you zoom in on your screen. I apologize. For some reason, my computer's just not displaying it. Let me try one more. It's coming
across pretty well on YouTube. They can see it.
They can see it?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm watching it.
So we'll summarize this really quick. Just a few. I'll just read it real fast. Sorry for the long delay between updates. The lines have really closed the last couple of days. Not surprisingly, FSU and others on the inner circle have things on lockdown. This seems to correspond with a lot of FSU bigwigs being in Tallahassee the other day. Sounds like it was an informal meeting, which included golf, which is probably how they were able to get around Florida State's Sunshine Law. We'll talk about that in a second. That said, it seems like that FSU future in the ACC penalties and the Gore SEC versus Big were discussed in some capacity. So again, Moen, do you want to describe what that Sunshine Law is?
Sure. Sunshine laws just say any state business has to be open to the public. Records have to be kept. Minutes have to be kept. And FOIA requests can be made to obtain that.
That's Freedom of Information.
Yes. I'm sorry. FOIA, yeah. Freedom of Information Act.
Next portion here, it says, despite the lockdown and the flow of information, I did hear that there have been increased chatter between FSU and Clemson and the SEC. I heard this from two different sources the other day, but was waiting in hopes of getting a little more clarity on the nature of this chatter. Is an offer being tendered? We're talking about Clemson and Florida State moving to the SEC, or is it just very preliminary talk about two ACC schools jumping to the SEC at some point in the future? One highly placed Big Ten source said their conference is now proceeding ahead on the assumption that FSU and Clemson will be in the SEC soon, and as such have their eyes on North Carolina and Virginia. And then a special note. It says, don't listen to what you hear from Greg Sankey, who we all know says one thing and means another. When it comes to the possibility of the SEC adding FSU and Clemson, no conference commissioner tips their hand before moves are made. Did you want to add anything to that, Coos, or anybody? Just as we're trying to explain it to people.
Not really. I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, honestly. I did have somebody in one of my chats earlier say, well, but North Carolina, Miami came out and their AD said they're committed to the ACC. I said, yeah, and that's the exact same thing the Pac-12 president said
Right.
about 2 days before they left. So you cannot pay any attention. You can't pay any attention to what Greg Sankey said on Paul Feinbaum. You can't pay any attention to anything anybody says, except Brett Yormark, apparently.
Yeah, you can pay attention that he's saying something, and that tells you something. But yeah, otherwise, a lot of it's just cover story,
Disinformation.
You guys find it ironic that Brett Yormark actually told us what he was going to do to a degree. I mean, he didn't come out and say it verbatim,
Right.
but he hinted at it.
I think it.
And he actually
does what he
accomplished
says. Yeah.
Now some people got rubbed the wrong way by it. Some people, I guess, find it refreshing. I don't know, but obviously I'm biased, so I'm probably not fair for me to give an opinion. But
no, of course we are, because it's our conference. I think
Yeah.
it was wonderful. I loved it, every bit of it. And what I love the most is, just like you said, Coos, what he said he did.
yeah, I'd like to know Moen's opinion. Moen, do you find that Brett Yormark's approach?
Hey, look, I'm not a big fan of the loud approach, but I'm a big fan of results.
Right.
Can't argue with the guy's results. I
Right.
mean, he's made the Big 12 stronger than it's, I mean, he's basically set up the Big 12 to be the third conference. And
Yeah.
he came in at a time where that, seemed like it wasn't going to be the case.
Right.
There was still, the pack was still out there with Oregon and Washington. You still have the ACC out there. The pack is basically no longer around, and the ACC is standing on the train tracks. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I prefer to just go and do your business and be quiet about it.
Mhm.
But I don't argue with results. I mean, results are results.
Yeah,
Very fair, I think.
that's fair.
A comment here from Sergeant Pickles, is one of our subscribers. He says, Coos deserves to be the observer of realignment. for
That's
once.
right, baby.
All right. And then this last paragraph, I think, also has meaning. It says the only other nugget that came away is that ESPN is anticipating huge TV ratings for FSU LSU, which, if they went to the SEC, everybody knows would be a conference game. Also, an internal study confirmed much of what Michael Alford laid out last February's Board of Trustees. FSU squarely in the top 10 when it comes to college football ratings, and FSU is the only non-big SEC school other than Notre Dame in this rarefied air. So take that for what it's worth.
Yep.
But it's big news. That news that came out just a little bit ago about Stanford and Cal running into some headwinds, trying to get into the ACC, that's significant as well.
Mhm.
God, there's just so much stuff going on. Let's see here. We'll just roll out, see if there's any more
One thing to Coos on that, you saw the FSU versus LSU thing being brought up.
Mhm.
It's never seen a year before where this type of talk is carried to the season, or yet where they're going to use a game as actual, like a
Mhm.
data point and proof of a point in it, where I don't think this is going to stop once we hit the season. What do you think?
No, I don't think it is either.
That's crazy.
But the thing
So
is,
crazy.
though, I don't think that game. Yes, I guess it's a fair barometer, but LSU is going to get good ratings no matter who they play. But if you stack that game against other opponents they play, it'll be, what I'll be interested to see is how will the ratings for that game compare to the ratings of other games within the conference, like LSU versus Bama, LSU versus Georgia,
Right.
LSU versus Ole Miss, or whoever, you name a team.
Mhm.
I'll be anxious to see, because I'm sure it's going to get talked about, right?
Sure.
Because
Yep,
of this,
very fair.
because of this cloud. So I'll be anxious to see the comparisons of those ratings.
Yeah,
and see if-
and
See-
use
see-
that rating to kind of compare to what
Mhm.
FSU gets in the ACC.
Correct.
Because it's going to dwarf it. It's not a fair comparison. First week, how much else is going on, but it's still going to be used and talked about.
What do you guys think about Dennis Dodd's interpretation?
Which
of
one?
Yormark's
Which
comment?
article was this?
That's a really nice word to use.
Oh, you're talking about yesterday's interpretation of Sankey's comments?
How did he get the Florida State? That was a stretch. to me.
The whole
let's
thing.
just say favor or money. Can I say that?
Personal favor, you could say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's how it works in that business. It's like I scratch your back, you scratch mine at some point in
Or
time.
something. You scratch
that
something.
was absolutely. I'm thinking there. If Florida State doesn't bring pro rata, there's no school in America that brings it outside of
Right.
Notre Dame.
No, worse than that. How about his comment about Sankey didn't have to call out to the pack, but he did because he's good and honorable. It
Oh
was
my
just-
God.
Great
it was-
leadership.
It was
Great
so rich. I
leadership.
was like,
that's
Yeah.
leader.
Really,
He said
Doc?
that's leadership.
really?
Yeah,
That's
break.
leadership.
Yeah.
Greg
I don't
Sankey is
feel
the
bad.
king of. Greg Sankey is the king of speaking out with both sides of his mouth.
Yeah. He has both sides of his mouth moving at the same time, saying different things, actually.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to a few last comments here as we wrap this thing up. Oh, before everybody leaves, we still have 120 people watching, which is crazy considering Immaculate hasn't carried his weight tonight. And
Damn.
and
Now I got to put some ice on that one.
tomorrow we have Bob Thompson on the show, 8:30 Eastern. Be here. Bring all your friends and relatives. Gather around, drink some whatever, and have a party. It's going to be a fantastic interview, and we really hope you're able to be here for that.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah.
I took notes.
Thank you very much. I
Hey, and
appreciate
Nate, after the show, I've got something I need to chat with you about, so I'll shoot you a message.
No, you can just hang on.
Okay.
When my shows end, everybody sticks around. I do a little after show, and then they take
Okay.
off. Just
That'll
hang out
work.
for a second.
Okay.
Let's do a few more. I got a few more subscriber comments. Summit Hawk says, I say we wait and let the dominoes fall. We don't need to be aggressive. Let them come to us. And I think he's talking about the Big 12.
Yeah. Like how they were aggressive with the pack, but now you
Right.
guys have the comfort to just sit back and watch the ACC
I
thing
don't know
develop.
what that one means.
You don't have to go
Let's
hunting.
see. Pitt schools, so we get the best. Some of these Summit I'm taking out of context, and they're not as good. BR says, I believe part of the reason Brett Yormark has been so vocal was due to the Big 12's need for positive, aggressive narrative.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't argue with results. It's I
Conference
can't-
kind of
Yeah.
beaten down for a while, and now
Mhm.
they've got a new life and a new swagger a little bit there. So
Yeah, let's keep in mind
Absolutely.
he's a marketing guy. He knows he's PR marketing is his shtick, so he knew what to do.
That's right. Here's a call out for Coos from Summit Hawk. He says, Coos, do you think the KU West Virginia rivalry can stay alive without Huggins?
It's a good question. I think it can, but it definitely might take a hit because he and Bill Self were really close friends. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all going to boil down to can they play good basketball games. If the games remain to be close, competitive, if West Virginia can steal one once in a while, then yes, I think it will stay alive. If KU dominates us for the next 5 years, then yeah, obviously, I think it's all going to boil down to what happens on the court.
Agreed. Yeah. Rivalries stay alive when they're competitive.
Right.
It's a lot easier. I'm going to pick this as the last comment, and we're going to wrap up. From Sergeant Pickles, he says, the realignment ride never ends. We've been saying that for months, and can't wait to see what Bob says tomorrow. I can't either, and I invite everybody else to be here and find out. We're going to ask him some tricky questions and see how that goes. So I appreciate everybody being here. Coos, thanks for coming in here at the end.
Absolutely, man. Yes, sir.
Greg had a family thing and couldn't make it, so I really appreciate you picking up that slack for us at the end here.
No problem, man.
Let me make sure everybody can see everybody follow these guys on Twitter. All their addresses are up except for Immaculate's even got his up now too.
Mhm.
Follow everybody on Twitter. Go to Coos Corner on YouTube. Follow that show. It's fantastic, and we have a good group. A lot of people thinking the same way, working together, and I hope that we're producing stuff that people like. So we really appreciate everybody comes back. And I'm just gonna give you guys a chance to say anything else on our way out.
Okay. Who would you like to start?
You're
All right, I guess I'm going. Hey guys, I got my name there for Twitter. We've been having some fun little conversations as these announcements come out. The various media folks, they put it out pretty straightforward, and always invite folks to come on and have a look and put their 2 cents worth. I try to respond to as much as possible for you guys, and it kind of brings up some secondary conversations between people. So when we have a lot of fun doing that here in chat, we can also do that on Twitter. So feel free to find me on Twitter and tell me what you think.
How many of you? Doesn't matter.
I'll go. You can find me on Kuz's Corner on YouTube. I cover West Virginia. I cover the Big 12. Cover a lot of realignment talk, obviously. It's probably my favorite thing to talk about, especially not during the off season. But you can follow me on Twitter at Kuz206. You see it right there on the screen. I'm also, you can find me on Instagram too, but I don't get on there a whole lot, but I do have an account under at Kuz's Corner. But
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, Nate.
Oh,
Right
of
on.
course. Absolutely. Anytime. Okay. It's not working, Moen. I'm trying. It's not coming up for some stupid reason. I did an update. Windows is killing it. Go ahead and do your promo. I'm sorry. I tried bringing it up and it won't.
Just wanted to say Gene Smith has announced his retirement from Ohio State today. One of the best, probably the best athletic director ever in the history of the institution. Did so much for all of the athletes at Ohio State, not just football. I've got to meet him and talk to him on several occasions. Just a really great guy, and I just wanted to wish him well and hope he enjoys his retirement, and we'll look to the future. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go
All
Hawks.
right, everybody else. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to joke
Oh.
with Moan Vision. Gene
Oh.
Smith is retiring. Gordon Gee got an extension at 80 years old or 79 years old.
Yeah, and you can keep him.
My goodness.
Oof.
That's a
No,
job.
I knew
right
that
there.
was coming. That's the reason I said that. I knew how he would feel about it. He's not
That's
very well
nuts.
liked at Ohio State or at West Virginia
Ah.
anymore, for that matter. But
All right, everybody. We'll see you
he'll be
tomorrow night,
he'll be out in 2025 though.
8:30 Eastern PM. Thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.
Have a good